Okay, we're on, we're live.
Okay, hello, and welcome everyone. I want to make sure you know this is our Board of Finance meeting. I know there's another meeting across the hall. So if you don't need to be in the Board of Finance meeting, you need to be at P and Z over there, Chuck, right? Okay, that's over in the other room. Okay, with that, I like to call the meeting to order and Judy, we can go ahead. Thank you.
Judy Neville, Schultz,
There.
Amy Barrett here, Todd Montagary, here, Randall Shin.
Yes.
Here, Victor Alvarez,
Here.
Maria Lindbergh here, Bob Hamel.
Here.
James Yao, and your first. We are all.
All right. If it's okay with that, I'd like to do a motion to approve the minutes in one motion.
Yeah.
We've got 4 minutes from the February 7th, February 9th, the 14th, and the 16th. If there are no objections, I'd like to have one motion to approve all 4 of those minutes.
So move.
Second. So Tom and Chris, all in favor? Aye, opposed? None? Okay, so moved. Thank you for that. Okay, so Ann, are you gonna do an update overview on this or budget review? We're not really.
I thought that was more from you guys reviewing it versus me.
Yeah,
But
well,
we can drop that, so.
I don't really, I think it's premature. I think we
Okay,
have to
good.
finish tonight's meeting. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't think we've
Yeah.
got all of our data yet, so we're gonna do that. So just so everyone knows, we're gonna finish these presentations. We're gonna have a little time at the end. We can kind of summarize where we are. Tuesday night, we've got our public hearing. And then after that, I don't know how long that'll go, but assuming that it won't be that long, I'd like to use some of that time to really try to get everything buttoned up, get any questions answered, get any of the data that we need to have so that we can vote on Thursday, the following Thursday, to do the, to move it to the town council. Everybody okay with that process? With that? That's the way that it's, get it all done. Okay, including capital, and everything else. So, that's where we'll go. Okay, so with that, Mike, I think we'll have you kick us off for the better foundation. Thank you.
Want me to,
That's it.
yes. Let me just bring up.
Yeah, it's kind of a cozy room, Mike. Thanks. I know it's a little, awkward.
I'm just happy to be first.
What I said.
Thank you very much for having me. I think,
Yeah.
okay, great. So, I think you all know me. I know most of you. My name is Mike Beneventure. I'm the chairman of the Buchanan Athletic Foundation. Just a quick refresher. I think everybody knows we're a public-private partnership in partnership with the town of Buchanan. It was established in 2016. We did our PPP agreement memorandum of understanding, I think back in 2018. As part of that MOU, I come to various town boards once a year to update you all on our activities for the past year. So far this year, I've done that with the Board of Selectmen and the Parks and Rec Commission last week or 2 weeks ago, I believe. And so the first slide here, this will be a little bit different than I've done in the past because it'll go beyond just our activities of the past year, but also talking about some of our projects that we have intended for this upcoming year. So you can see here, we do 2 main things just as regular operating cadence, and that's running what we refer to as the enterprise zone, which is established as part of the memorandum of understanding when we built the fields, Water Tower 2, 3, rebuilt Water Tower 1. We established what's known as the enterprise zone around the high school campus, where from the roughly period of June 15th to August 15th, it's run as an enterprise zone or a for-profit, although not really for profit, really for the town's benefit, where we rent those fields to various organizations. Primarily, that has been our main tenants have been the Eclipse Lacrosse program, Kristen Woods program, I think CT Grizzlies is the name. We've held a couple of lacrosse tournaments for lacrosse clubs, and then we also do some renting to Luke Green Soccer Organization and the Griffith and Ribbit football tournament that happens over 2 days. We have an executive director who for the past 3 years and really was our first executive director that established this program was Bobby Rushton. And Bobby has left us all, I think most of you know, and is now the athletic director at Wilton. He did run this past summer though, so a lot of this credit I do continue to give to him. I'll get to the third bullet point in a second, but this past year, you can see we had gross revenues of around or $68,165. That's down 16.5% from 2022. That was primarily due to one less lacrosse tournament that we had in 2021. There was a timing conflict this year where we were not able to secure the fields for the 2 necessary days to hold that tournament, which was the primary reason for the down tick in revenues. We also had some fewer rentals from soccer, but I think still a substantially good year, bringing in 60, a little over 68 grand in total revenues from the enterprise zone. The other activity that was part of the MOU that was established was to be the entity that collects the player use fee, which was put in place by the town many years ago, where $25 is effectively a tax to all of the youth programs and now the recreation programs as well gets charged. And in the past, it's gone into the town budget. We heard from some of our constituents that they were looking to have a little bit more transparency on that. Effectively, now we collect, the Athletic Foundation collects that $25 fee. All of the programs send in a roster to us and we multiply it by $25. They send us a check. The MOU states that half of those monies go directly into a turf replacement account that's held at the Community Foundation. The other 50% goes into an enhancements account for what we call shiny new toys. And that goes into also a fund that's held at the Community Foundation. I should, just to go back up to the top bullet point, again, I said this is not for profit. We're really just operating a pass-through entity. The net revenues, and we're just in the process of finalizing that exact number from the enterprise zone, go directly into an account. Once a year, we do a sweep into the New Canaan Community Foundation Fund, and those funds are entirely held for turf replacement. This goes back a number of years where we're trying to at least help contribute to the useful life of these turfs that were built come up for renewal, that we have funds to contribute so we can build a bit of an endowment. So the player use fee this year, we had basically, we will have 100% collection, including all programs, and that's close to $100,000. So again, good for the town, both with new enhancements and the turf replacement account. The third bullet on here is our new executive director at the Athletic Foundation. Bobby was really helpful identifying a person that he thought would be effective. And we interviewed a couple of people, but John Carrozza came up as the person. He's currently a teacher at the high school. He's also an assistant coach on both the varsity football team and the varsity lacrosse team. It's important from our perspective to have somebody that's integrated into the school system, that understands the scheduling, is well known by Jay, and knows the system and how the fields get used in order to operate this enterprise zone in the summer. And effectively now we've gotten to the place where I won't say it's plug and play, but our tenants are pretty consistent. The tournament, at least the big tournament that comes, the Trilogy Lacrosse tournament, is pretty much on an annual cadence. And so we feel good about the operation of it. We can maybe enhance a little bit, but for the most part, it's operating the way it should. And I don't see any blips this coming summer with John taking over for Bobby. So we're excited about that. This next bullet point, I've talked about this a little bit in the past, but it really started during COVID, got silenced a bit during COVID, but for the past 18 months or so, we've been in what I would refer to as the private portion of a capital campaign that we branded the Marinelli Capital Campaign. And really, that's not meant to be a football campaign by any means. It's meant to be, as any good capital campaign is, branded with an identifiable name. Coach Marinelli was really good to us in terms of allowing him us to, or lend his name to us in order to help raise these funds. We have a goal of $5 million. We've been in the silent phase for roughly 18 months. We became public on the Tuesday before Thanksgiving when we held a fundraiser at the Country Club in Buchanan, where we officially kicked off a number of things. One, the expansion of our master plan to 2 new projects, which I think many have been versed around here, but I can go into them a little bit later. Specifically a basketball arena and also new turf fields at the Sachs Middle School. And then the other thing was to publicly announce that if we raise north of $1 million, our goal, we would come to the town bodies, specifically as part of the MOU. We, the Athletic Foundation, have naming rights if we come to the town and ask for certain facilities to be named, if we ask permission. And so we've asked Lou if he was be willing to do this, and we're coming now, have told the Board of Selectmen, have told Parks and Rec, and tell you folks tonight, officially this would have to be approved by town council, but we would like to rename the Water Tower 1 field the Lou Marinelli Youth Football Complex. People are pretty excited about that. People should understand and know that that is not a football related campaign. It's really Lou lending his name and giving us the ability to rally the entire community and folks that have young athletes across the board that use that field, not only just for football, to be able to, effectively, quote unquote, God bless you, sell that asset, which was contemplated when we built Water Tower 1, 2, 3. I can't tell you how many times people have asked me which one's Water Tower 1 and which one's Water Tower 2 and which one's Water Tower 3. And I said very simply, that could be the Amy Carroll Field for north of $1 million if you'd like it to be, and nobody would get lost. So in this way, we're excited about that. So why is this important and what are we talking about for? Well, let me pause there and see if there's any questions before we go into one of the real reasons I'm here, which is our plans for this upcoming fiscal year and the projects that we have on tap.
Just a quick question. How much money is in the turf replacement plan?
Right now, before we make this sweep for this year's activity, there's $130,000 sitting at the Community Foundation. My guess is between those two numbers, you'll probably have close to another $100,000 swept into the Community Foundation account. Andy Gordon, our treasurer, is working on that calculation right now, but it will be done within the next month.
And the first field that would be up would be done.
That's based on the life of, yes, Dunning was the first field that was done in the summer. I would say generally people refer to those as 10-year useful lives. That can be anywhere from 8 to 12. I can tell you when we were at Dunning and we were forced into the rip and replace, I think we're on year 13 that year. Kind of well past its useful life.
So
Which was, if I can refresh everybody's memory, the reason why the Athletic Foundation was founded, because my understanding was Dunning was going to be condemned in the fall of 2016 if we didn't raise that $750,000.
so you think you've got another 3 or 4 years before you need to look at Dunning?
More than that.
More than that, 17, 18, 19, you had a COVID year where it was effectively not touched. So I think you probably have a good 7 years left.
No, that's good. So at the rate that you're accumulating, that should be good.
It will be a healthy contribution.
Okay, good.
Next slide.
Okay, so this is the fun stuff. Sort of. This is just a refresher. This is one of the other things we undertook after we did 1, 2, and 3 was we engaged Richter and Segan to come up with a master plan. From our view and from looking, around the different towns, one of the real luxuries that New Canaan has is effectively a campus to work with. And so we said, well, there's other things that we know, we hear from our constituents that they want to see done. And so how can we come up with a master plan and stage these projects out over time? This is the footprint of what's really encompassing the enterprise zone and the original master plan in terms of the major projects that we wanted to get done. The first is down to the lower right. That's the entryway to Dunning. You can see some sketches there with some site work, but it's effectively a new entranceway to Dunning, a new donor wall, a new press box, some storage area, and site work around the area. This, from our perspective, and I think from most people in town and around the state, is the premier athletic facility in, I would argue, the state. It hasn't been touched in many years, outside of a new scoreboard, maybe 10+ years ago now. And oh, the new lights that we contributed to. So yes, of course, we have new lights. So it was touched this past summer, which I should mention was always part of the master plan. But there's more to do here. So that was the first stage of what we wanted to get done in the master plan. The second was really to the top left. There is the proposed varsity baseball field. That's a turf field on the existing JV Capo field tucked in next to Lapham Center. My statement there has been pretty consistently, we're one of the only teams, if not the only team in all of Connecticut, that currently has to take a bus to their home games at Mead Park. It would be really nice, and the baseball folks would really like to see their varsity baseball field on campus. That's a big focus for us. The softball field's down in the lower left. Again, we talk a lot about turf. We talk a lot about turf because we're in the Northeast, and we sort of have to talk about turf in the Northeast. I would also say that just generally speaking, even with Capo, and we can talk more about this, what I hear probably most from all of our constituents is, despite all the turf that we've built, there is a massive turf bottleneck. And the more turf that we have, it seems that there's more people that want to be on turf. And that is probably the biggest complaint I get. And like it or not, in the Northeast, especially for the spring sports, you've generally had an issue deep into sometimes April not being able to participate. So turf helps that out. Having additional footprint, whether it's a baseball field or not, is really helpful to relieve some of that bottleneck. And the last example I give to that is, I was in the fall at my son's youth football game at Darien. And as I walked, they have a beautiful varsity baseball stadium that is full turf all the way to the outfield. And it was being fully utilized on that fall day by the youth field hockey program in Darien. So again, just an example of more turf footprint gets more people out there participating. And in this case, it was, K-4 girls playing field hockey in the outfield of the varsity baseball field at Darien. So that's the master plan. As we get into more detail, we've worked on the Dunning Stadium project since, I would say, Tiger knows better, but I would say the beginning of June last year, where we started to engage them in real site work and survey work and design work. We are at a point now where we're in a cost engineering, value engineering project. But these renderings should give you an idea of why we're so excited. You can see this would be a new entryway to Dunning. It would be just to the right of the existing entryway on the left there. That would be the donor wall that I've been promising people for many years. That's physically going to exist right there to recognize all of our donors. A new entranceway there, a new ticket booth. To the right, you can see that's a new concession stand and bathroom stand. And the beauty of this area, and we designed it from the beginning to service both the inside and outside of Dunning. So, and it can be opened and closed based on a gate. And the outside piece, if you can conceptualize it, is what happens at Mead Park. We have a lot of families, a lot of people that participate on Water Tower 1, 2, and 3. And this would create sort of a Mead Park setting with a picnic area that there could be an operating concession stand, even if nothing was happening inside at the stadium, where there was just youth activities happening on Water 1, 2, and 3. Complete with bathrooms just to the far side there. So people get really excited about that. It's hard to get people excited about bathrooms. We did a good job with it. And that's that piece of the complex. So I think
seeing the existing
The existing, yes, so that will become mostly bathrooms. One of the things, and Tiger can speak to this, and it's actually in the middle of our value engineering process right now is, the ADA requirements, for the number of stalls and seats that you need are, way above my pay grade, but there's more of them, I'm told, and I know that they're expensive. So, those will mostly become bathrooms in the existing, and then that area over there will become the new concessions. I think the next slide, Tucker, is just more of the same, kind of turned a little bit. You can see, and you'll get a glimpse at the next two slides here, but to the top right, that's okay, you spoiled me. To the top right, this really all started as a press box project. And for me, and again, we're a triple P with not only the town of New Canaan, but also the Board of Education. And we've had conversations with Dr. Lutzy, Bill Egan, and others about the press box and about the student activity that has taken place around athletics that is strictly due to broadcasting and covering these games from a journalism standpoint, to the point where many students have gone on to study this in college and ultimately make it their careers. The press box we've always viewed as a working classroom, in addition, extension from the high school to what we're trying to do in athletics that will serve, well beyond just the student athletes that are on the field. So it's a two-story press box as it sits today. You can see kind of from the outside there what it will look like. If you take to the next slide, these next two are what it will look like. That's the back of the press box, and then you can see to the right of it is sort of the inside concession stand, right? So that's the proximity of it. And then really the next slide is what it looks like from the field side. When we do this, and we're on target to break ground, call it shortly after graduation this coming summer, I don't think anybody can dispute the fact that this will be the absolute premier athletic facility in the state of Connecticut, and I would put it up against many other facilities in the country. I would tell you all, one of the more unique things that I didn't realize until I started paying closer attention, Dunning's Field and the stadium itself is one of only two facilities in the entire FCAC that does not have a surrounding track around the field. What that does is bring the action much closer for the fans. It brings their parents closer to their kids. When you go to other places and you view games where there's a 6 or 8 lane track around a football stadium or a soccer stadium or lacrosse game, it is really different. And that's what makes this really special. It's also a bowl setting. I think when we do this, combined with the lights, the press box, the new entry, I think you will get, certainly state, if not national recognition when it's complete. So that's all the good news.
I have a question.
You done.
Yeah, so we can,
One more slide.
oh, I'm sorry, there is one more slide. Oh, I forgot, because I have one of
Read
the,
it
so yes, I did. And this is, you saw this in the master plan. This is early in its design phase, so I don't want to highlight much beyond what this rendering is right now, because they're currently doing survey work, and then we will get into the more complete design phase. But you can get a sense here. It will have some stadium seating around the back. It will have real dugouts along the first and third base lines. It will have an area for bullpens and batting cages. I don't know, I doubt the batting cage will be out in left field, which kind of sticks into the middle of Mead Park. The one thing I am sensitive, we all are, and we've instructed Richter and Segan and the architects, is to have the outfield as it pushes into the park a bit. And remember, this is already an existing baseball field, but you do start to push out into the park a little bit. What we'd like to see is the fence, which will be an existing fence, like in a hedged type manner. So that you'd have hedges, like flowers and stuff out in the outfield as it pushes out. That's that green barrier there. That, we know what we're building here and we're sensitive to it. And we wanted to make sure that we try to integrate that I would tell you, I was most concerned when I presented to Parks and Rec that I was gonna get some pushback here, and everybody there seemed super excited about this design, where it was located and how it was being thought about in terms of its ultimate design.
Mike is, so a couple things, you said the existing fence, there's no fence there.
There's no fence there today.
There's no existing fence.
Correct.
The only seating really anticipated is behind home plate.
Correct.
People, I think, have had a perception, because it says stadium, that there's seating all around or all over, or at least up and down the first and third base, but the answer is no, it's just the seating is behind home plate.
Correct. I
It's
think
basically empty space right now to the parking lot, so it's just that area for,
correct. In
Okay.
fact, if you recall, like, it actually slopes off pretty hard,
Yeah.
kind of right behind Capo, and they asked, the architects asked me, what would you like underneath the stadium seating? The stadium seating is basically goes from dugout to dugout and then, kind of around home plate. Fortunately or unfortunately, I spent way too much time on a baseball field, especially through the South this past summer. I've seen every incredible baseball field there is in the country at high schools. And they're all roughly the same. Some are a little bit over the top versus others, but none of them have like what you're talking about, college stadium seating.
I know that,
Yeah.
I'm just making sure everybody else is understands.
Yes, so that's-
Extremely minimal.
Correct.
really,
That's right.
behind home plate.
Underneath, because of the topography, there's actually an opportunity to ask if we wanted to do concessions here. I said, no, that's expensive and probably wouldn't get used a lot there. We're discussing some of this stuff, but there will be storage, there will be other opportunities for stuff underneath where those seats are that we could use when you're building a facility. there.
Is the outfield turf? For this?
The outfield is
phase-
turf.
Phase 1, 2,
Today, it's contemplated as turf, yes.
or what do we have to the Amy Carroll batting cage?
And, yes,
Does it have to be turf? I mean, no, the infield will definitely.
it doesn't, well, nothing has to be turf, right? Mead Park is not turfed in the outfields. I would tell you the donors for this, and we have most of the Athletic Foundation donors are unrestricted donations. For this particular project, we have a strong, and it's the reason why it got accelerated quite frankly, group of targeted donors, restricted donations to this project. I'm not sure that you would see those donations come fully through if it was a hybrid kind of half turf, half grass facility.
And has anyone thought through the implications to Mead, because this will be where baseball played, where, Mead will be the second choice, right? And that's where the concession is, and that's where everything else, so there'll be an implication there, right? All seats, sort of, I'll call it senior baseball will be want to be played here.
Well, yes and no. On the days that the varsity, the school teams are playing, that Capo today is used as a JV field. We would envision that Mead would be used as a JV field. Mead would be used throughout the summer on their Babe Ruth schedule. Mead would be another 60-90 facility that currently the town has 3 of: Mead, Capo,
So you're gonna
and
convert Mead to 60.
no. A varsity field is a 60-90 field.
I think that the 60 bases. You're not talking about the 10, 11, the.
No, the little guys would stay on Melick and Gamble.
Yeah.
Yes, in fact,
But 60 is also the base for the other baseball guys. For the 11s and 12s.
Oh,
for the whatever it's called.
the
That's
base
60.
path, the
That's
base
what I
path,
said.
correct. So,
You're not talking about that at Mead.
but not at Mead,
Okay.
but for the summer months, when maybe this isn't being used as the varsity baseball field, having a full turf field like this, and I've seen this in other complexes, allows you more flexibility. So you can set those bases up as 60 bases, not 90 bases. When you're on a synthetic, exactly, when you're on a synthetic infield, you have more flexibility to be able to adjust for that.
Are these 2 fields drawn to scale?
The varsity field is, the field to the top left is actually, it's noted as a baseball field. That's Richard Seegan not writing it correctly. That's currently used as a recreation softball field.
That's the Michael Chen softball field.
That's correct.
Which ones?
Upper left.
The top
And that
left.
would stay,
Yes, that would stay, and there's also one down to the lower left. Now, we have to,
And it would be designated as softball field.
those would continue to be recreation softball.
It says on the drawing, Michael.
Yeah. It's, I'm retiring from softball, so you have to call it someone else's softball field soon.
There's currently 3 recreation softball fields up in that area.
Yeah,
One there, and one's on the actual other side.
So what's your ask? You gonna get into your ask for all this, or?
I'm going to get into a conceptual ask. I would, so,
Before you ask, just to
Sure.
make sure, so this existing field, which is now the JV field, and this is all kind of sort of. This is all within, the area that's been designated for the athletic foundation, right? The little.
Matt, yep.
Okay. This is basically in Wayne, right? It's like the backs, the end of Wayne, right? And,
Slapping really, right?
okay, just in terms of turf, that much turf and Waveney, is that like all?
Well, I would argue, I believe, yes, yes, because if I thought I was gonna get a lot of pushback, I thought I would have gotten it from Parks and Rec. And I did not. I would say Waveney, to me, is a big place where I don't know where it starts or ends. Water Tower 1, 2, 3, technically town Waveney. The girls softball field is technically Waveney, but these are already existing designated athletic fields.
Sure.
So from that standpoint, yes, but it's also on the campus of the high school. So,
I just want to make sure.
yep,
Well, maybe just to follow up on this, so this field in your vision is part of the enterprise zone that's in the MOU.
not my vision, it is part of the enterprise zone.
So we would benefit from all of the funds that are
Correct.
reserved and all the rest of it.
So on a typical summer day, when the temperature is say 80 degrees, what temperature is a turf field? And the fact that it's hotter than your ambient temperature, does that make people, do the fields get used less as a result of the excess heat on the turf field?
No, it is hotter.
How much hotter?
Hotter, I don't know, I'm not a,
So it's relative.
it,
It depends,
it also depends on the day. I mean, it could depend on if it's like a 80-degree day in August with no clouds in the sky. I mean,
So Tiger, if it's 80 degrees, it's sunny, and the field's been baking, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, what do you think?
It'd be hard because I have to get into humidity levels because humidity levels is a little bit different, right? That's why you don't wet it down. Because if you wet it down, you actually make it hotter. It makes it feel hotter because you actually increase the humidity level.
You could ask Gary on this question. I don't think it's anything. They play all the time.
We haven't seen a reduction in use of the turf fields or dunning during the summer months because of whether or not you're, whether it's sun baked or not. It doesn't, I don't think it matters, to be honest with you.
So since baseball is fairly, I guess, seasonal, is there if it's turf, can you kind of repurpose it in the football season?
yeah, that's my purpose. That was my point around the field hockey practices.
Yeah.
It will be primarily used for a baseball field. The use of the fields is not up to me. It's up to the fields committee. It's governed by the fields committee. It's governed by the fields committee from, August 15th to June 15th.
But you can see how in the winter, maybe, other sports.
100%, 100%.
Honestly, they've been out there in February for a few days on playing baseball. It was 65 degrees.
I mean, Bucknell was supposed to play a lacrosse game at Wilton this afternoon. Had it not gotten 8 inches of snow, they were playing.
Question for you on, more of the other fields. I know that, Wilton is putting up a cover over their turf field. And I heard mention that might extend the life of the turf. And it also, to your point about keeping it cooler. Because it blocks direct sunlight. Like a bubble.
Wilton is talking about bubbling the field.
I'm not that I'm trying to.
No. No, this is totally, if you can imagine, I've done a lot of work on this and, so bubbling the field, we talked a lot about even putting anchors down on Water Tower 3 for a contemplation of a bubble. Bubble becomes maintenance, bubble becomes, where do you store it when you put it up and put it down? Bubble becomes, that's an ongoing expense every single year. Bubble becomes, believe me, there is massive the holy grail of this whole thing is to have an indoor facility. We would love to see an indoor facility done. I don't think for our purposes as a municipality and all the expenses and maintenance that come along with it, bubble is realistic.
If you're kind of Cheshire, you lose your bubble. You know?
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah, it came down to the snowstorm over the top of the pool,
Oh, my God.
so we don't have it anymore, we lost 2 of them, so yeah,
And thankfully, no people.
thanks to the people.
So maybe it's not
Good
such
to
a
know.
good idea.
Which one would you like to enclose that you would make into
And now you're getting Judy into like phase 3, but it's not, I'm not talking about enclosing any of these fields, we're talking about building another facility.
oh,
That's not this week's project.
That's
No.
not-
Let's focus on this.
It's
Let's walk us through your.
Here, part of this discussion.
It's not, but that is one of the other 60, 90 fields that exist in town that we don't, the Athletic Foundation doesn't have any jurisdiction, for lack of a better word.
well, just didn't know it was in the capital, yeah.
So, yeah, I know I'm taking up a lot of time and I apologize. I will be short on this.
We didn't know any of this, it's.
Hey, one quick question. Is there gonna be lights on this field or no?
So this existing field, I believe, Tiger, we've talked about this. I believe it's zoned for lights. This project is not contemplating lights today. What we would likely do is what we did with the track, which is lay conduit during the construction, so that if you ever wanted to light it and lights were approved, it would be an easy do. That's the existing structure at the track. I don't know if anybody remembers this or knows this, but we are intending at one point to put low-level lighting at the track, similar to what there's like in the high school parking lot. All that conduit is laid, all of the electrical hookups potentials are there. It was gonna be another $200,000 or something, and we just didn't have the money to do it at the time. But that doesn't mean that we didn't plan for it when we blew up the track and rebuilt it.
That's.
Yeah.
That same thing would be done here as part of this project, but the short answer is no, it's not contemplated as a lit field today.
Got it. All right, but the conduit would be put in case down the road, right?
Correct.
All right, that makes sense.
Ben, are you all of the same vision, to argue before the, Hartford review of the bill to eliminate the turf? I mean, is that going anywhere? Do you have a group organized? Conservationists, environmentalists,
I
whatever?
mean, my group is Tom O'Day. And
Well,
I'm well aware of it. I know, I'm well aware of it.
Constituents.
I am hopeful that that is not a realistic proposal.
I don't know, somebody said it has no legs, somebody else said they're really behind.
I've been told it has not
Zero.
strong legs.
Okay, I hope.
Tiger, you're.
It's come up in the past,
Yeah,
and
yes.
it's been filled times.
But a good question, because we definitely sat here and said, well, we just built 4 fields, we're talking about building another one, and if the state is gonna make us rip them up within, you know, however many years, that we thought about it for sure.
Yeah,
We try to be as comprehensive as we can.
be prepared.
So all of this costs money, and that's the hard part. We've been particularly successful in our fundraising project. I think we will, and we are continuing to engage in our capital campaign. We have, I mean, I'm in conversations with One Family Foundation that could be a very large gift towards the project. Would likely include another piece of naming that I would come back, but it's still early stages on that. There's 2 phases to this. Number one, you know, the Dunning project, we're starting to get closer to real numbers, and we're in a value engineering process right now. We've gotten initial bids. I'm not at liberty to kind of disclose those yet, because the value engineering is real. We've already done another meeting along those lines, but that is a project that I'm very comfortable and confident that we will have a shovel in the ground with all of your approvals come the beginning, kind of middle of June, end of June. The baseball project, I didn't think was going to be this year's calendar issue. But, you know, come in December, they came very fast and furious, they being that group of, what I refer to as targeted or restricted gift donors. And already, with a number of less than 15 people, they've got a 7-figure number targeted towards that project. What we do at the Athletic Foundation is follow the money. And when people like that come to us with that level of momentum, I never want to lose that level of momentum. I want to capitalize on it. And so I moved them to the front of the line and we jammed Richter and Segan and said, go get the survey work done. And they're talking about wanting to try to get this done for the spring of 2024. Is that possible? Yes, it's possible. We got to move now. Okay. So we got them going on that. The net of all this is, I don't know exactly where we'll shake out in terms of the total donor number, but you all have been so generous, including us in a placeholder each year for capital projects. We have 2 major projects that are going to come this year. And what we'd like to do and what we intend to do is ask for a matching donation from the town, as we did the first time we went through Water Tower 1, 2, and 3 and the track rebuild. That ended up being about a 50-50 project. I think actually the town kicked in a little bit more towards the end, which made it a little bit more town of New Canaan versus the Athletic Foundation. I'd rather not revisit that, but
Yeah, let's go.
but
It worked.
it worked out, and there's lots of kids playing on those fields.
Like, just maybe some specificity though, just let's start with Dunning or baseball, you think.
Dunning would happen first.
What's we need to know the cost of the cost, but what are you asking for the town? What's in the budget? Is there a budget amount that you've already had?
You have 3 years now of 300. There's 3 years at 300, so 900 is currently budgeted for in the 23-24 fiscal. But that is the number that I would ask for more, given
This is the time to ask.
it's hard for me to ask for a specific number when I'm in the middle of a value engineering
But it's
process.
hard to budget for a specific number if we don't.
When-
My understanding, yeah, so
We need to,
When do you have to sign
we would need to put a placeholder.
You have to sign contracts.
do you have to put a placeholder on a capital project, or this is not operating, right? It's capital.
Capital, and it would go to town council on March 9th. So we don't need it tonight. We're really good to have it next Tuesday. When we vote on
We have to, or do we go out of cycle?
Well, we need a placeholder for a budget. We can't.
Well, you've got 300 there now, right? Where's your 900?
That makes a total of 9. That's
That's right.
correct. You know, 3 threes. The, right now, Mike, it's unfortunate because right now we're trying to determine. We're at the state building inspectors stage right now, trying to get a determination as to how many bathroom facilities will be required. Right now, we don't have enough to satisfy the entire stadium. No one ever satisfies the entire stadium. It's not possible. So there's a delta in between that. Do we satisfy the average of every football game, which is about 1,400 people, which is what we're shooting for? Do you shoot for the turkey ball at 4,000, or do you do the average of every other game, which is 300?
You temporary for the.
Right, so exactly. So we're shooting, right now, we're talking to the state building inspector. The moment he gives us what he will allow, since it will be a variation from the code, then we'll be able to quickly back solve everything else, because we'll know exactly how many pieces of facility we'll need, how many, additional bathrooms we'll need for each for male and female, and then size the building accordingly. Right now, we sized it to, the maximum, and, that number is quite large, right? So we're in the stage of bringing it back. The moment we bring it back, we'll have a very good number from our cost estimator as to what it will be. Then obviously we'll put bid and, be told in the bids, but, we'll have a better say. I'll speak to Brian Platt tomorrow, since he's in discussions with the state building official.
That's a placeholder already. Is that reflect the maximum that you're talking about, or?
No, it doesn't. We took 300 just as a number. every year just to put a placeholder forward for the NCAF and for the Conservancy. Yeah,
Indiscriminate, whichever project they want.
This started 3 years ago, basically, it's a 5-year plan,
Yeah.
300 a year, but we had no projects on tap at that point.
Yeah, it's fine.
Right.
So, but we do need a ballpark. Really, when we vote on this thing on Thursday, we'd like to have it on Tuesday.
Tuesday next week.
Tuesday, a week from today. We need a ballpark because
The vote's Thursday.
it's okay and when you go to town council and say, I got a ballpark, you might have actually a better ballpark a month from now, right? When we get, comes back up to May, you have a really good number because you want to dig and shoot. We can play with some of that, like, I can't have $100,000 in there and it's really 2 million.
Understood.
That's the problem.
Yep,
But is it in addition to the 300,000?
Yes.
That is partially being fundraised or totally?
that I
it's
can
for
promise
this-
you.
That part we really need to know.
That part, it absolutely will be in addition to that.
It would be partially fundraised or a total acts.
No, there'll be,
No, no,
you'll,
we're
you'll,
gonna split.
Yes,
I
It'll be a
get, I
fundraising
get
part.
that, but the part that you're bringing forward is your ask of it.
yes, yes.
You're right, no,
Yeah,
that's right.
how much more you need in top of the 9?
Exactly.
We will, right?
That's exactly right.
Right.
But we already assume we're putting 3 in, so you'll have just
I
a.
will start with, this is what I think the projects are gonna come in at. I will have a number that the Athletic Foundation is going to contribute to that, and this number will be matched.
I honestly, I think we'd rather have a number now that might be a click high, and you got a lot smarter by May, and we take it down. That's okay. I think the reverse would be horrible.
I'm not
To
gonna,
ship those in the million, you need 5.
I'm not prepared to get a fee tonight, but I can be next week.
I just want to give you guidance on that. I think
Yeah,
it's better
That's helpful.
Say, okay, you know what, we don't know what it is, but pencil in this and we'll find it.
Totally
Hey, that works, because we can send that to town council.
Totally understood.
But then we don't have to put compo in this budget, we just have to put that.
It's your decision we'll make.
You're
yeah.
gonna give us both rounds, right?
Well,
Yes.
you think it goes the compo project?
Well, I was gonna go there next. That was done.
Right.
Now on Copa for baseball, you've got, I'll call it money with an expiration date on it from I'm guessing dads and moms and families that are juniors and gonna have seniors and wanna have a ball field. We need to know what you're thinking about as it relates to that split. Again, not tonight, we don't have it, but next week, we have something we can pencil in there. Because to me, that one, again, with private money, people stepping up and saying, we want to put $2 million for work and we need $1 million from the town, it's an easier yes.
Yeah, it's much easier.
Please smile.
We've done so many of these.
I would tell you in both of these cases,
Yeah.
that's going to be the case.
That's right.
Like, my intent is to come here with a sizable gift. And I would, all of these are not only, I mean, in many cases already cash in the bank and in many cases pledges, but everybody understands. And all of my donors and participants know, we don't sign a contract without cash in the bank. This is not a 5-year pledge situation. So it may be a pledge today that will turn into cash tomorrow or a month from now, right before we sign a contract, but everybody understands it's within the month.
We understand that and that's fine. And I would say, we respect that and love that, right? That excites this group to do that. And as Dr. Lunsey told us when he did his presentation, 70% of the high school students, I think he said, do some sort of a sport. Well, start now, right? Whether, younger and playing, moving up the field. So anyway, that's great. If we could have that next week, do some ballparks. So we can
Okay.
put it down, no pun intended.
Is Connors no longer on the capital?
That's where it is.
I mean, we're still talking,
Yeah, I mean,
So is that, is that?
I'm not as familiar with what the plan was for Connor. I mean, I know Connor and I know the actually more discussion from my standpoint has been around the soccer field that's in the outfield there. Because I hear about that from the,
Turf the infield at Concord.
that was, the proposal was to turf the infield, so we could use like you said, right, so you have a 60-90 or 60-70-90, right? So you've got the small kids, you got Cal Ripken, and then you have large, right? So, but that was just the turf, the infield alone, the grass was gonna remain, the outfield was gonna remain grass. We have some problems with the drainage in the right field line, that would eradicate that problem, that would take care of it, because then it would make it much more playable.
But the Connor soccer field is gonna stay grass, right?
Yes, so it would just be the turf infield, 'cause at that point in time, You could, the majority of the damage happens on the infield anyways, majority of the work. And in an inclement weather, you could do infield practice, not necessarily worrying about the outfield. It is. I sent you my list, so it's on my list for
It
the
is,
first.
that's why I
So,
asked.
yeah, so in essence,
And
it did its first year, so we just, we teed it up and we said, okay, you're asking for some cuts, or deferments, that one, we're, I talked to John Howe, and he was like, well, it's in its first year, I said, John, he said, you get first words out of his mouth, Connor.
Yeah.
So, so we put Connor to next year already, so that one's gone.
Okay.
So Mike, you break ground and hopefully if everything goes on time, you break ground in June, you'll be ready for. First game of June.
June for Dunning,
Yeah, for Dunning.
the press box, I mean, we're into the cadence of when this would all happen, but the press box, yes. You could probably be building the concession stand, even if that wasn't fully done, you could have the existing, like, those are engineering and construction guys but I asked the exact same question, this press box will be done. You could start building this building, still operate out of old concession. New concession could open, you could finish this building, making it, so everything would be operating during the
Some
regular season.
operations.
And most importantly, from our perspective, no fields are actually getting touched here, so you're not gonna disrupt any play. It may be, you may disrupt some parking or something, but you're not, no disruption of play, which, the first time we went through this with water tower 1, 2, 3, the track, the Dunning ribbon replaced, there was a lot of disruption of play into the fall season, so we shouldn't have to deal with that.
Good. Any other questions? Do you have anything else you want to present?
Yeah.
Cool.
That's a lot.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks. All right, Steve.
Yeah, I'll pull it up for you. Just let me know.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Nice to see you all. Not sure I want to be doing these repeated meetings. I know you have to sit through.
Just a question on that. Can Michael Chen, can you hear Steve speak? And could you hear Mike before?
I can hear him.
Okay.
Good.
Where's the nearest mic though?
It's that owl, and it is very echoey. You really need a carpet in here. It would help immensely. That's all you need.
We're not gonna do that tonight, though. but-
Ah.
Not the line anymore. We're getting out, so you start, my turn here.
Well, thank you for letting me talk tonight and give you an update on Waiting Park Conservancy's activities. What I wanted to do is just review kind of what we accomplished in calendar year 2022 and give you a preview of what we hope to take care of in 2023, and then try and tie some of that back to the funding that you've given us for this fiscal year. And again, we're hoping that you'll repeat that funding in 2023. And before I jump into the detail, I know most of you already know our background and our vision and how we work with the town, but I know there's some people that sometimes are a little fuzzy on that. So I'll just give a quick synopsis of that. I think, as you know, we were founded in 2015 as a private 501c3 organization, but we work closely with the town under a letter of understanding or memorandum of understanding. And our basic role is to act as an advocate for the parkland side of Waveney. And I'll contrast this with what Mike was just talking about. We take care of the side of the park. There's the non-field side. So that's everything south of the driveway that bisects the park, goes approximately 130 acres. And our primary emphasis is on stewarding the mostly the softscape up to the foundations of the house. The house is not under our purview.
Did you plan that photo?
I know, because that's not there right now.
You know what? I did not, but it's very apropos today.
I was gonna give you tremendous kudos.
I'll explain in a minute why that photo can't be from today. But at any rate, that's the background on who we are as an organization. And Tucker, why don't we move forward and we can One thing I'll just point out here as well, in addition to our background, I always like to throw out this statistic, which is that we are one of the most heavily utilized parks, not only in New Canaan, but in all of Fairfield County. And 2020, WestCon did a trail usage study on a number of parks, and they determined that we likely have, on an average week, 5,000 visits per week. So
That's a
good
COVID.
question. That's a good question. That was during COVID. It's hard to say whether that's the same, but I think the general statement that it's a very heavily utilized park remains in place. So Tucker, why don't we go to the next slide? So I'll go through quickly what we accomplished during 2022. We focused considerable attention during the year on building organizational capacity. We also advanced a number of existing projects and tackled several meaningful new projects. We started the year with hiring Phoebe Knowles as our first executive director, and we established a physical office in Waveney House. Phoebe is charged with increasing our efficiency in administration, project management, fundraising, and communications and programming. And we were also gratified, as you know, to be awarded an ARPA grant of $250,000 and a budget allocation from the town, which we hope will become recurring, of $300,000, almost all of which we anticipate being able to deploy by the end of this fiscal year. Now, on the project front, we continue to focus on maintaining and establishing both Anderson Pond and Genia Meadow, where you will see new deer fencing, bird habitat and boxes, and significant new educational signage. We also completed a restoration or the restoration of the forecourt of Waveney House that we began several years ago. And this year's activities included power washing and repointing the courtyard walls, installing new outdoor lighting, and installing new climbing trellises, and finally installing an alley of mature trees on both sides of the courtyard. And that's in addition to the new foundational planting, the new hedges that we installed in the courtyard several years ago. And if you haven't been down to take a look at that area, it's night and day from where it was a number of years ago. It's looking very good. It will only look better as those plantings become more established. We also took responsibility for ensuring that the various planters surrounding Waveney House are professionally planted on a 3-season rotation. And honestly, that's a fairly small project, but it's a good example of the eye to detail that the Conservancy is able to bring to the park. And although it's only about a $15,000 annual spend, professionally maintaining those planters makes a huge impact on the appearance of Waveney House, the terrace and surrounding area immediately outside of it. We removed the beloved but unfortunately dying white oak at the bottom of the sledding hill, and we replaced it with another white oak. But we also harvested the lumber from that tree, and it's currently being cured at a location in Fairfield, I think. And our hope is to repurpose some of that lumber into products that can either be used in New Canaan or in the park itself, or be repurposed into products that can be sold to raise funds for the park. On the new project front, we reset all of the flagstone walkways in the parterre garden and around the Eberly sculpture fountain and in front of the walled garden, significantly improving their accessibility, safety, and appearance. And finally, we closed out the year by replanting both entrances and the entranceway leading up from South Avenue to Waveney House with over 1,000 native, or excuse me, over 10,000 native plants. And those will take some time to become established, but by this spring and this summer, you're going to begin to see sort of a huge new palette of color and texture in that area. We think that over time, that's going to make a huge visual impression for people driving into the park. So it'll be very noticeable and very significant. And Tiger, why don't we go to the next slide now? These are just some pictures of some of the completed projects. I won't go through all of these. I'll just note on the right there are some of the new trees that we installed in the courtyard. You can see that those are a fairly significant size. They'll make a huge difference in the appearance of the courtyard. The other thing I'll draw your attention to is the relayed ADA compliant flagstone walkways. If you haven't been down to see that project,
It's beautiful in appearance. We were extremely pleased with the work that our mason, Mr. Fortino, and his son and team did. This required a lot of craftsmanship. It was a big project, but it turned out absolutely beautifully. We also want to just say thank you to Bill and Susan Brock, who provided a significant portion of the private funding that went into that project. The other thing I'll point out on this slide is just at the bottom in the middle here, those are some pictures of some of the plantings that went into the new entrances and the entranceway. I don't know if any of you were actually in the park when that project started, but if you saw the quantity of plant material that was delivered for that project, it was staggering.
And I know that Frederick Law Olmsted worked on these, this property. Are you trying to maintain the renovation or the improvements to the specifications that he set forth when he originally laid out the plan?
Where we're aware of the specifications, the answer to that is yes. That's always something that is considered by the landscape designers that we hire. I think it's something they want to be as true to form as possible on. Something like the front, there's probably not great documentation available to us as to exactly what was originally there. And
What about
some of that's changed. Flagstones, yes. In some of those cases, those flagstones, you'll notice a difference between those flagstones and the flagstones that are in the parterre garden. Those stones are much larger. They're the original stones, and they have fairly significant gaps between the stones. In the old days, flowers were actually planted in those gaps. Nowadays, it's very, very difficult to get the stone material to match those stones. So that's why they're somewhat different. And we also haven't chosen to replant flowers and plants in the gaps near the parterre garden because it's impractical. People will probably be stepping on them, given the number of people, and it would be extraordinarily expensive to maintain. And one of the things we always like to remind people of is back in the days when the Lappins owned the estate, they had 40 full-time gardeners year round. So unfortunately, we're never going to be able to match that, much as we might like to. So that, again, that's a quick description of some of the projects, or putting pictures to words on the projects that we accomplished this year. And now we can go to the next slide and talk about what our plans are for this calendar year. First bullet point explains why the picture in front of this presentation, which was the statue with the snow on it, can't actually have been taken in the last couple of days, because the Eberly Fountain statue was actually removed in late January, and it's currently in New York City at an art restoration facility where they are cleaning the fountain, removing harmful surface deposits and oxidation, installing a protective coating on it, and fixing the plumbing. And that project is almost completed, and we expect the fountain to be reinstalled probably at the end of this upcoming month. Also, this upcoming year, we are hoping to launch a project that's been in the works for a while, which is to redesign and re-landscape and rebuild the service area to the left of Waveney House. If you're looking at Waveney House and you look over to the left, I think most people are familiar with the fact that there are typically a lot of town vehicles, there are a lot of supplies, there are dumpsters, there's a loading dock, and quite honestly, that area is somewhat of an eyesore. So we've been working with the town to develop plans to build a wall to hide some of that equipment and the dumpsters, and to re-landscape in that area to essentially beautify it. And instead of having it be an eyesore, have it actually be somewhat attractive. That project is out for bid, and I need to get an update from Tiger as to where that stands, but hopefully we're going to get bids shortly. Thursday. Okay, good. And once we do, we hope to be able to begin work on it shortly, and hopefully it'll be completed by late this spring or sometime this summer. We've offered to assist in funding the repair of the roof of the walled garden sitting area. That project actually has already been completed, and it looks great. The Garden Club, I think, is also going to contribute some project funding to that effort. We've also agreed to jointly fund a new arbor plan for the park and assist in funding the installation of new specimen trees called for in that arbor plan. And again, that bid was accepted by Keith Simpson, who's working on the arbor plan as we speak, and I think that's supposed to be finished in about a month or so. Next, and this is related potentially to the Arbor plan, we'd like to develop a plan to improve the appearance and usability of the wooded area bordering the western wall of the front courtyard and the parking area. If you're, again, looking directly at Waveney House, you'll know that there's a parking area to the right of the house, then there's a wooded area, and then there's the courtyard. If you actually spend any time looking at that wooded area, it's actually pretty scrubby and somewhat unsightly, and that especially jumps out now that so much work has been done on the courtyard. It really stands out in contrast. So we'd like to find some ways to potentially, again, improve the appearance of that area and increase the usability of it. The next point, and this is one of our most significant priorities for this year, is that we would like by the end of the year to create a plan for 1 to 3 options for enhancing the Merritt Parkway trail. And if you're familiar with that trail, you'll know that it's very, very exposed to the Merritt Parkway. You see the traffic and you hear the traffic, and that's even more pronounced today than it has been in the past, because last year the town rightfully removed the old chain link fence, which is original to Mr. Lapham, that at least had some vines and things growing over it. It looked pretty unsightly, but it blocked some of the at least visualization of the Merritt. And now it's down, it looks much cleaner, but you're very aware that the Merritt is right there. And we've heard for a number of years, many park patrons saying, isn't there something you can do to buffer that area, to attenuate sight and sound from the Merritt? This frankly is going to be a big project. It's going to be an expensive project. And it's a project that we would fully expect it has to be completed over a number of years. We think it lends itself well to staging. But it's also a project that's going to be require quite a bit of work to plan properly and come up with appropriate options. So we're in the process right now of trying to identify landscape architects, engineers, surveyors, and other constituents such as individuals associated with the Merritt Parkway Conservancy, people from the Department of Transportation, of course, town employees who are going to have to be involved in this discussion for the plan. And I think we're pretty close to having the team. Once we have the team in place, we'll start getting into the planning phases. And again, our hope is that by the end of this year, we'll have 1 to 3 options to choose from. We'll make a choice, get it approved, and then hopefully sometime in 2024, we can begin implementing against that plan. So Steve, the money for planning is in your request, or is it a lot of money? Or what?
Well, no, we'd love for the town to help us on occasion on planning, but for the most part, at least historically, we've paid for the planning. Now, we may be helped a little bit because Greg Riley is actually in the process of submitting a grant request for some trail assistance, and we think that we may be able to use some of those funds to assist in the planning.
Okay, and then when the plan's understood, you have a couple of options, you'll evaluate them, you'll pick an answer. Big money.
Correct.
For next, not this budget, but probably over the next couple of budgets.
Over the next couple of budgets, again, and I'll be honest, I know Kevin gets nervous every time this subject comes up. And I understand why that is. When we originally did our strategic plan, our landscape designer that did the strategic plan, we said, can you just give us some ballpark figures for what these projects will cost? And so she threw out some ballpark figures on each of the projects that were sort of enumerated in the strategic plan. And this one, I think, she gave us a range from, I think it was $2 to $5 million. So it was a big, big number. I will say that since then, we've completed at least one project, which is the driveway project and the entrances project. That came in way below the range she gave us, a quarter of the range that she gave us. So I'm hopeful that might be the case here, but I fully expect that this will be a 7-figure type of project, no matter what we do. But again, we're not planning right at the moment to come to you and say, hey, instead of 300,000, suddenly we need a whole bunch more money for this. We think that utilizing that 300,000 and matching it with funds that we're able to raise, that we should be able to stagger the work on this. I won't never say never that we may have asked, but that's kind of our current thinking.
The other thing that we'd like to begin some work on this year is that we've had a forestry plan sort of on the shelf for several years. Which nothing has been done about. And this plan sort of envisions cleaning up some of the forested areas in Waveney, removing some scrub trees, removing invasive vines, things of that nature. We recently had that updated, and our hope is that we'll be able to begin implementation on some portions of that plan, some of its recommendations this year. And again, I think that's probably something that we would do a little bit of work on each year for several years. Next, we're in the process of evaluating establishing a more robust Art in the Park program, possibly beginning with launching an art bench program. For some time, we felt that it's somewhat of a logical extension of the work that we do to think about how can we do more programming in the park, and using art as a tool to draw people into the park is something that we've experimented with, but we'd like to put some more thought into. And I'll come to the idea for the bench program in just a minute when we look at some of the pictures, so I can help you visualize that a little bit better. And finally, we hope to initiate a more proactive communication plan to tell our story, drive engagement, and support fundraising this year. Now that we have an executive director employed, that's going to be a focus for them. That should give us the bandwidth to do a much better job there. So Tucker, can you go through the back one? Here's some pictures again that put a visual next to some of the words. There's the Everly Fountain statue. Should be back in place soon, should look a lot better. I don't know if you can see it, but around the base are a number of frogs, and those frogs are actually fountains themselves, but they've never worked. So when this comes back, not only should there be water shooting out of the top of it, but the frog should be spewing out water as well. So
What about Emily's signature? That was like really hard to read. Is it gonna be easier to read after it comes back?
that is a good question. I do not know the answer to that question, but I can
I'd look
find out.
for it. I was like, is that it?
It fades in summer.
Unfortunately, a number of our board members went into the studio that's doing the restoration. I think it was last week or the week before, and I was out of town, so I wasn't able to check it out. But I heard it was pretty cool to see what they're doing. Apparently, it's a very reputable group. The next picture in the middle here is just an elevation of the redesigned and rebuilt service area, which again, we hope to start work on. As you can see, that'll be a huge improvement over what's there right now. And then I won't spend a lot of time on the other pictures, but I'll point to the lower right-hand corner. Those are some examples of benches that we may seek to install in the meadow and potentially in other areas of the park. And the idea for those actually came from Carol Clarkson, who's Genium Foundation funded the restoration of the Genium Meadow. And Carol earlier this year said, I'd really like to have some benches in the park. And I don't think she was necessarily expecting anything special, but in the course of the conversation, she showed us some pictures with benches that she had seen in various locations. And these were actually created by, I believe, a Scottish artist. And when she showed them to us, a number of us had the same reaction simultaneously, which is, those are really cool. They're functional. You can kind of sit on them, you can lie on them, but they're also amazing to look at. They're sculptures. And maybe there's a way that we could put a couple of those in the meadow, maybe elsewhere. Maybe that would draw people out to actually not only use the benches, but actually see them. And that then prompted more discussion on, in the future, could we do more sculpture in the park? Could we do trail art? And so these are things that we're trying to put some more thought into this year. Several of our board members are looking into that. But this is an area where we think it's quite plausible to start. We also think that that's something that would need to be self-funding from people that are interested in the arts.
Do you like to use the white oak wood? What do you think?
Thank you for asking that question.
Yeah.
That's something that we very much would like to do. So we may purchase some of these benches from outside of town, but we may also be able to use some of the white oak wood and give that to local artisans and have them craft some benches as well. So that's very much under consideration. Why don't we go, Tucker, to the next slide? This table just tries to provide a summary of some of the projects that we've completed already during the fiscal year portion of this year, and that we hope to be able to complete prior to the end of the fiscal year, and illustrates the town contribution or expected contribution and our contribution. And I think the takeaways from this are, number one, that we think we have the possibility to absorb all the funding that you have provided to us. Number two, that we're matching that funding, which equates to a spend on jointly funded projects of $600,000 invested this year, or up to $600,000 in the park. So that, again, I don't know if you have any specific questions. I will point out that the service area renovation and re-landscaping, that's a plug figure, as Tiger just mentioned. We're waiting until Thursday to get bids back. So that's a plug figure, and we would expect that that may be drawn from the town allocation, but we may also draw funds from the ARPA allocation that was made to the Conservancy, which we have not used yet.
And how much would that cover?
Pardon me?
The ARPA, how much would that?
Well, the ARPA could conceivably cover all of it. And there's some issues we have to work out as to whether that's an ideal project for those monies or if they're.
Well, yeah, at all.
Are these mostly the projects for this coming year that you're asking? for?
No, these are mostly projects that either have been completed or we think have.
Okay, turn it in categories. So the category, re-landscaping and arbor plan for the park and those sorts of stuff. It'll be totally different projects for this coming year.
For the upcoming fiscal year,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
There will be some overlap on some of these things. For example, implementation of plantings under the arbor plan, implementation of forestry management plan. We may be able to do some of that before June, but it may flow into next fiscal year as well. One other thing I'll just point out here is that this slide just shows jointly funded projects. During calendar year 2022, so it doesn't line up perfectly with your fiscal year 2022. I also just want to point out that we also invested an additional $174,000 of private funds in various capital improvement and maintenance projects within the park. So I think the point here is that we're investing heavily in the park, and we hope that the town will continue to do its part to invest in the park as well. And why don't we go to the next slide,
How
Tyler?
about the disc golf course? Is that part of your remit?
No. That is not at this time. So Todd, in answer to your question, the main point of this slide is to say that if you grant us another 300,000, that we're very confident that we've got the projects that would absorb that in the following year. And this is a listing of some of the projects that we envision beginning work on during fiscal year 2023. So with that, Tiger, I guess the next slide. I just want to thank all of you for your support, especially during fiscal year 2022. The 300,000 dedicated funds towards capital improvements was extremely helpful in not only enabling us to plan, but it's also very helpful and I think streamlined our ability to execute projects more quickly. And we obviously hope that you will once again approve 300,000 in this upcoming year. We think that we're very good stewards of the funds. We have the projects to absorb them, and we're confident in our ability to match them. And we obviously think Waveney Park is a very worthy investment of town resources. So with that, that's my formal presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
One quick one, just if I add that up, right, you spent about 800 last year, right? You had this 317 from the town, 312 from the WPC, total 635, plus the 174 from the private funds.
Can you go back to that one?
Yeah.
Is that about right? Almost just under $1 million.
That sounds about right. And some of this, again, some of that fiscal year 2022 has not been spent yet.
No, that's okay. I just a ballpark, it's about 800,000 of money spent. And you're asking for, almost, so call it a third of what you spend.
Yeah. Traditionally, I mean, our hope going forward is that for the most part, on most projects, we're going to match whatever funding the town gives us. Historically, we probably, on some of the capital projects we've undertaken, I'd say it was actually private funded 2/3, leaving the town 1/3.
I mean, look, what you're doing is unbelievable. And there are more people that use Waveney every week than use anything else in this town except for the pool.
Yeah.
And we spent 60, 80 million there operating over 100, so just saying.
Well, we're really gratified with the way things are turning out, and, I want to call out Tiger and John Howe and their crew. They've been awesome to work with, and believe me, I know how many directions they get pulled in on any given day, but, they've been very helpful on all these fronts, and we're, grateful for that. And I think the park is looking better than ever.
Thank you.
Great job. Thank you.
All right, have a good night, everybody.
Thanks.
I hope you don't have to stay too late.
I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay.
I don't want to interrupt or, I don't want to let you have all.
We never know what Ian has up her sleeve. The last bit here. You're up.
So I can see that the folks on the phone or on Zoom can't see me, so if you want to put my video on,
I am.
then I'll join the party. Okay, so thank you all. We're ready to get started.
Yes.
It's good to be back in front of the Board of Finance. It's been a long year. So again, I'm Patricia Spadani, representing the town players of New Canaan. I've been on the board for 3 years, and I'm a resident in town for 30 years. And I have a bachelor's in technical theater. I'm not sure I've ever shared that before, but it's been a long time since I used those chops, but it's good to be applying them here in the community. I'm joined tonight on Zoom by some of the other board members and a couple board members here, Joel Reynolds and Dana Prince, and then Deborah Burke, our president of Town Players, is also on Zoom. So thank you for inviting us back to talk about the Powerhouse Theater, and specifically the scope that we're here to talk about tonight is just the lobby expansion and renovation and the new ADA balconies. So the other things that we've got in play here with the town, when it's out of scope, it's just to talk about the Powerhouse Theater. And then to talk about the funding requirements that we have. So what I'm just here to remind you is that the scope again is the lobby. The design is rendered on the left-hand side. It is just that, it's a rendering. We're still working with the architects, Architectural Preservation Studio, that I think has also joined us on the phone to get the actual layout, but that's conceptually what we've got, which is a new lobby over the existing patio, as well as an alcove, which we view as an alternative entrance, but also an alcove for an alternative performance space. So that the lobby becomes a multi-purpose space, not just a lobby, but a place we can also host events and do other small performances. I'll point out that this part of the campus of Waveney, we just spent a lot of time, and we're also proud of the park. This part of Waveney and the buildings here are really the last unrenovated, untouched pieces. The Powerhouse Theater has been in place for 40 years. We're celebrating our 40th anniversary, and really there's been no significant external improvements since that period of time. And Town Players has a lease with the town and our public-private partnership since 1983, although the organization was founded in 1947. So we've been in town for 75, 76 years. We as a board are the current stewards of this town, bringing live performances on stage here. Our plan is to more than double the square footage of the lobby, and also to provide the required ADA compliant restrooms, which Tiger's talked about several times. So that's the project that we're talking about. I'd like to just give you a little update on our past season and the year that we're in, so we can move forward. And we have actually had a very successful year so far. We are in the 4th of our 5 major productions. We're currently doing Ordinary People. I hope you're all aware of that, and still plan to come. We've got one more weekend on Friday. And so you are, it's good. And we've been very successful. It's continued our record-breaking attendance at the theater.
It's been outstanding. We know for any of you that go to Westport Country Playhouse, for example, they actually had to reduce their season from 5 to 3 shows because they've had some problems getting an audience back. We've not had that problem. We've been very successful in getting our subscribers who usually come to the theater, as well as many new people in town, which is great. We have made as a board a commitment to becoming more involved in current in the community. So for example, for the second year, the Chamber of Commerce has had us actually host the onstage performances at the Holiday Stroll, which was great fun. We have awarded student scholarships to some high school and college students who've been on stage in our theater with the generosity of sponsors from the New Canaan Artisans Group, as well as the Exchange Club. So that's worked out really well. The other thing that we're committed to doing with our season is to have one program, one performance, which allows us to really reach deeply into the community. So before COVID, that was we did the STEM program with Rocket Girl. Many of you saw that, which was very successful. We had the playwright in town. And then this year, we have doubled down and partnered with the New Canaan Human Services as well as Silver Hill Hospital to co-sponsor the production of Ordinary People. And I think most of you will have seen that movie in 1980, Oscar-winning movie, but we've had and expect to have nearly 800 people see this production in town. And on Saturday this week, we are doing a teen for free performance where adults can come, but they have to pay. But the idea is to get as many of the young adults in our community to see the performance. And Dr. Gerber from Silver Hill is going to be leading a talk back. So we expect that'll be very well attended as well. Saturday night, we just had a wonderful fundraiser at the Carriage Barn, followed by a performance of Ordinary People. To benefit the urgent assessment program, which has been sponsored by the town of Silver Hill. So it was very well attended. We had over 100 people. We raised a little bit of money, which we can talk about separately, again, to support the continuing of the urgent assessment program. So while we're in the middle of fundraising for our capital campaign, this is our give back to you. We donated the full theater seats for the night, and we raised money in generosity sponsors, and we're very proud of that. So that's where we are as a theater. It's great, you know, people come to town, they go out to dinner, they live outside of the community, they go shopping in town, have host parties at their homes. So we know that we're having an economic impact as well, outside of what we're doing. Okay, so let's go directly to the project itself. In terms of where we are this year, we met again with the Board of Selectmen just to reaffirm the project and the town's commitment for funding about 50% of the new lobby of $500,000. So then we met with the ARPA subcommittee meeting, which gave us the opportunity to come here and present. So we're looking forward to having a commitment from the Board of Finance tonight for this portion, and then we'll be off to the town council. So if we could go forward, thank you to the actual budget. One of the challenges that you and the town council gave us was to sharpen our pencils on the project and the scope. So we didn't change the design, but we did, with Tiger's help, we did have a contractor review the construction diagrams and the design and suggested that at this point, because of inflation and just that inflation, that we should increase the cost by 10%. So the new total being $1,129,000 with the contingency and architectural fees included. So of that total cost, when we look at the town funding, that would be the $500,000 that we're talking about tonight, plus the amount of money that was approved prior specifically for the ADA compliant restrooms, making the town's total contribution $575,000, leaving the town players' contribution to be a total of, there we are, here, 54,000, right? So it's pretty much split even. We have on hand between cash and pledges, 250,000, another $50,000 grant outstanding, which I fully expect and hope will be awarded, and we should hear a confirmation in May. And we have an additional $250,000 to raise. We did hire in December a fundraising consultant, and we began in earnest our silent campaign. We're making progress on that. And, again, I'm very confident that we will be able to raise the additional funds. So that's where we are from a budget perspective. And then there were questions in the past about the detail of what went into the components of the building, so I included that as well. So that's pretty much the fast and furious of it. We could go to the next slide, which just shows the footprint, the site plan, and the components that are outlined in blue, again, are the scope that we're talking about for the building, which is moving our office from where the ADA restrooms will be to where, switching the office space and the restrooms, and then expanding the lobby for accessible, barrier-free access to those bathrooms with the alcove. Okay, so I think that was record time. Take questions.
On the ARPA, that's next on our agenda, so we're gonna discuss that tonight, you know that. Yeah, okay. The rest is in the budget request, it will be part of what we vote on Thursday. Any questions specifically around that, around the request, 250 plus the 75? Plus the ARPA?
Can you just remind us what you have a sense of whether or not that can, as a project, approved and completed in a year? How long would it take?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I'm gonna defer to Tiger on the time to.
Sorry, the question was, can it be completed in a year?
You
Yes.
know how some projects. can-
Yes, no, it could be completed in, once.
Except for the fundraising has to be done.
Yeah, fundraising has to be done, absolutely.
So I was gonna say, so the money has to be in the bank, not, it's coming, it's gotta be there.
In the bank, that's right, understand. And the other thing, though, that with the way that the design works out, we won't have to shut down the theater because we have another accessible entrance on the other side of the auditorium that we can use. So we'll be able to continue operating as a theater while the construction occurs, which is also good because we really don't want to have to close the theater while we're doing this.
And for the whole campus, we also had the money previously approved to do the ADA bathrooms for that area, right? So the all-in cost is, was that another, it was 250, 350 or?
250 to do the bathrooms and the restoration of the body shed.
Right,
Yes.
we're swap it there. So so the all-in fixing it is this number plus 250.
Other questions? Anyone on the, on Zoom, Colm or Michael? You good? Okay, great, thank you for that. Excellent
Okay,
update.
thank
Appreciate
you.
it. See you Friday.
Great job. Good. Bring your ticket.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so next item on the agenda, we have two ARPA appropriation requests. Why don't we just segue, go to the town players. This is always my question. This was already approved by the ARPA.
So the subcommittee of both of these, we said they seem to comply with ARPA. It's not like people are endorsing them when they are the better space, we didn't do it. It's us to say everything. So. You can vote for
You
that.
said both of them. I was actually just, for it relates to both when they passed the sniff test in terms of making sure that we keep in line with responsibility.
Right, and then that the larger body shape.
Yeah, okay. So they're over to us. So the town players, questions on that one? You just heard the presentation, so fresh in your minds. We can move it tonight because we would take it up in a normal budget, so we can approve this tonight.
And the ARPA funds would have to be spent by the end of.
Committed by December 20,000.
Would spend. Spending.
You're not gonna-
After we approve it,
No.
council does it, or?
Committed, so after 2024, to 2026. Actually, do have one question, can I ask? Just, so, we can talk about it, but 2 years, which is a lot of work spending. In terms of the composition of the board for, the town players is, how many people on the board, how many are in New Canaan? Do you have new board members, have been switched around since we first chatted about this?
No, it's a good question. We have about, I think we have 16 board members. And we have a pretty good variety of people. So we have, I think, 5 people who live in New Canaan that are on the board. And 2 of them are new board members since we came here. One woman is Sally Rose Zucker, who was played Rocket Girl. She was the lead in that play, and she is now teaching at St. Luke's. So she's a young adult in our community, but you know, she's got an MFA in theater arts, seasoned actress, so it's great to have her on the board. Dana Prince, back here, has joined us also as a board member, and she also lives in New Kingdom right next to Silver Hill. So that's been good, we've done that, but we think it's really good to have a diverse board. In terms of representation, I'm not sure if there are actually, Richmond County is also a resident in town. So the rest of the board are seasoned they are seasoned actors and have been very active in community theater across Fairfield County. So we think it's good to have a representation so that we know what's, you know, going on, and we can be competitive, quite honestly, with the other community theaters in town.
And the reason I asked, a big project and, you know, 4 people working on it, so there's, I worry about key person risk, like if people go, moving, you know, in the middle of this. I mean, because there's been a lot of energy and, you know, stuff driven from, you know, a core group of people, so I just, you know, it's a big project, a big undertaking, so I just want to make sure there's enough depth there.
I'm confident. I'm not moving anywhere. You know, my mom's here, we're here, we're not going anywhere. But yeah, we're really committed to the project and believe it's important to add arts into the community. Ridgefield Theater Barn in Ridgefield, their community theater, they're just completing a large improvement, $3 million project to improve their theater. So we know that theater arts is important, and we think our building and our facility, quite honestly, needs to be upgraded. And this is hopefully just the start of other plans that we have. But we want to get this under our belt, and then we can move forward.
So is your concern that that this group would go out of existence and keep people left? Is that the point of the question?
Oh, I mean, there's some key people behind moving this project forward, so I make sure people are.
Well,
Here.
but.
And you know, they've been around.
The entire organization.
Yeah, no, I know. And but when we first started, there was only 3 people on the board from New Canaan, it's deeper now, 6. That's good.
It's been here 70 years, and I should have added, this is the only time in the 40 years that we've been at the powerhouse that the town players has come to the town for capital investment. We've been self-sustaining and are profitable, and you know, have been raising funds and raising our kitty. So we're healthy. We're very financially healthy as an organization. So
How much have you raised today?
$250,000.
You've raised 250.
Yeah.
And have we funded ARPA funds twice in the amount of 250 to anyone else? So a total of 500.
They're not asking for 200.
It's 250 plus 250.
Not
plus
of our-
you're raising 250. Well, it's 250 from the town, 250 from ARPA, and you're raising.
Yeah.
Right?
So only one.
Only one.
sort of.
So
And several of the other ARPA projects did have contributions from the town side. And some there. Yeah, and the original money for the ADA was just regular town budget. Exactly. Is that right?
But that we have to
I think
do.
that's right.
So the ADA, we have to do. They
Oh, true.
disappear.
Next time I'm gonna do 251, 249.
I'm begging. Let's round up $5 an hour.
So we had, $250,000 ARPA contribution, ARPA to cover the potting shed
Right.
restoration and the bath. That was separate. We were doing that regardless of what was happening with the powerhouse.
That's totally town.
Right, then,
Totally town.
then we have 250 from ARPA. Combined with 250 that's in the town buildings budget to make a $500,000 contribution towards the powerhouse renovation. On a 50-50 split, because right now the estimate's around $1 million, maybe a little bit over, but right around $1 million. So that's the two ARPAs. One is strictly town, and one goes towards renovation of the powerhouse.
I thought maybe I'm losing my, I don't forget this stuff.
We never got it. As long as I'm-
Tom, did we ever approve the ARPA and not approve the town contribution?
Would we ever?
Or in other words, you
We're not-
seem to be linking, well, we're just saying, oh, we can approve this now, and I don't know, well, for me, I'm not sure.
Well, we want to,
Yeah, I know.
we can approve it Thursday night if you want, what would we do the budget, is that what you're asking me?
Well, what I'm saying is, I don't, is anyone gonna put any ARPA funds in? Put aside potting shed for a second, no one's putting in a dime of ARPA unless you're going in.
Yeah, well, that's gonna come on the next conversation.
Exactly. So I'm not really necessarily saying. we have ARPA and then-
I hear you, and I'm happy to hold that part of the conversation.
Yeah, but you're
We vote on the budget, that's totally fine.
Together.
Yeah.
We approve the project, and we say we have, the funding will come from the town.
We can vote subject to approval on Thursday on the budget, we can do it that way. That's not.
We can do it tonight, but it has to be after.
After what?
Because what I think, what it's just saying is, we need to put this in the context of all the other capital things that are lining
That's
up
right.
for us to decide.
Well, the 250 from the town, that goes to matches, that goes to the ARPA for the 5 year things. So it's all one bundle. You can't just say, okay, it's the ARPA.
The cleanest thing is, let's just hold it till next Thursday. That's the cleanest thing to do. I mean, no one, no contingent to or subject to whatever, we'll approve all of it on Thursday. And I don't think that, everybody, that's the cleanest thing to do. Not gonna change anything for you, because you're not gonna have the other 250 voted on next Thursday. So, anyway, because it's the regular old capital budget, so.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll move that on, and, we'll table this until, we'll table it until after something. That's fine.
Right.
Second topic, are we good with this?
Yes.
All right, okay. We'll table that for next week. Okay, so, questions on the emergency, management command vehicle. It's a broader conversation than the ARPA dollars. It's a question as to whether or not that we want to go forward and move on this. What questions about it? Do people want, the buses here, I know the chief's here. You want to
Yes, and thank you again. And so just to provide some context again, the current ask for the incident command vehicle. Thanks to the chiefs for being here as well as Stuart Tubman. So Stuart, feel free to pull up the chair if you would. Is for $130,000 of taxpayer funds and $250,000 of ARPA funds. Our last time we came here was for a trailer, which was for $150,000 for the trailer all in. Obviously, this has greater capability than that. And at the time when we came for the 150, the board was verbal and in support, but obviously it got tabled at the time. The American Rescue Plan Act, the opportunities of things like the American Rescue Plan Act itself generally tend to come around when there is a major disaster or in this case, a pandemic. The last case would have been at post 9/11, when you think of all the funds that came after 9/11, the grant programs, after major catastrophes when governments were not prepared. So, this is a rare opportunity for us to prepare ourselves as we feel we should, as we should. And unlike 2007, when our last trailer was purchased in discussion with Doug Riley and others, there are not other grant programs that we're aware of for this type of acquisition. And as we discussed previously, the ARPA specifically in the Treasury guidelines, in the emergency operations centers and communications equipment is within the guidelines. Yes.
I think we get all that. I think the
Yes.
question is most important. Does this board want to spend $380,000 on this vehicle? That's the question. It's really what it is.
Yep.
The source of the funds is interesting, but not really, because we're gonna apply that 250 of ARPA funds to 50 other projects, so it's a decision, really, right?
Understood, and
There's other priorities that we could apply. that
my
to.
understanding is out of the funds that have been allocated or are planned to be allocated, that none have been allocated to any of the first responder agencies. Fully
We're not gonna allocate it.
Understood.
Might go to 6 police cars. So-
What would be less of the emergency service out of
That I do not know. I
Because
don't know
think
my way
that's
of the
the
world.
question.
Good question.
What did
It's a good
we
question,
not?
yeah.
So I think the questions that this board has, is, do we need it? How would it be used? Is it the right use of $380,000? Are there other ways to solve the incident command concern? Should something happen? Is there only option a command vehicle that we've never had? That's the question.
We've had a trailer, go ahead.
Yeah, no, we've had a, it's a command trailer, of course, and it's a 35-foot trailer.
Only understand.
And was it used?
It was, but one of the challenges is that because it's 35 feet and it's over 6,000 pounds, you can't tow it with just your basic, SUV. You have to have a proper pickup truck.
Sure. I understand all that.
Then
Understand all that. Probably was a bad choice at the time, maybe, I don't know, but if you get back to your question, how often was it used?
It was used annually for the 4th of July. It was used at,
That's nice to have.
No, it was used at the Devon Ridge Road Fire. It was not leveraged as, yes.
You didn't use it. It was available at the 4th of July. That's different.
No, it's used every year. As the incident command, as the command post and central operations center every single year. It's brought up to the upper field and set next to the ambulances that are at the area there. Fire says it's command post down at the bottom. We hope that they have an officer that stays in that as a command post.
And is it needed?
Yes,
In other words,
But they
we did
do.
last year. I mean, we used the trailer.
we got it up there with duct tape and hopes and dreams, and then it got up to the top of the hill and nothing broke.
What would it have been used for had there been an issue versus sitting on top?
It was insurance. It was up there for insurance. Right? I mean, it was just-
I mean,
just in case.
is that right? Or-
But what could not be, I mean, what I find is interesting that, since, there's two things. The first, trail we got was with grant money, okay, so grant money sounds great. But I worry about pre-committing the next generation people to replace something that we got with a grant that was kind of nice to have, but not necessary. And in that period of time too, I mean, the technology that has changed in terms of what our police vehicles have. You know, and what you can do and what we can all do that we got years ago. I mean, it just seems like it's, for a little town like this, it seems like a pretty major vehicle that you could use it as something, but how critical is, I mean, and, you know, then we have to fix it and, then it's gonna be obsolete, we have to redo it. I really struggle with the need, and it seems to me if this was really a huge need, I think I would have seen the police department say, we need this type of vehicle, and I've never seen that.
That would be, you're looking at just in that case, in that one statement, just the police department's use of, we're proposing it across all of the agencies to leverage the benefit of having that type of asset. As I said before, these are the types of situations, and in particular, planned known events where it would be. And right now, we will have these large spectator events, in many cases, except for the only one is the 4th of July, where we actually set up that command post as a town. Where we have those senior leaders of those departments there in one place collaborating and working, and you can't do that in a pickup truck.
What would you do tomorrow without a trailer, without the vehicle? That's the question.
On the hood of a truck.
That's
You
the,
do it with portable radios, and which have batteries that can die. You would not have phone except for cell, with our issues with cell coverage, depending where the incident was, we may not be able to reach out. That is its purpose.
So how much of the vehicle is technology and how much of it is the frame, the shell?
Oh, a lot of it based on what I could find, and I went through a bunch of, here's a bunch of different ones that are out there, varying from 270, 370 for a trailer. A lot of it is what goes inside of it. A lot of it is just the fact that it's aluminum. And the price of aluminum obviously is inflated. And what my counter to that point is the fact that this is, I hate to say it, once in a 20-year opportunity where, you know, the guidelines are that it's to increase preparedness and readiness, right?
Yeah, what's gonna happen, it's gonna go to Amy's point, right? Last time we bought the first piece with the grant, Now you'd be paying 65% of this one with another grant. Someday this is gonna come due, and there's gonna be no grant money, and somebody's gonna have to write a real check for $500,000 to $600,000.
Well, I think safety first, we know we want to have safety in the town, it's still not clear tomorrow. What we would do without this, you say the top of the truck, I think that's a little casual. Is there a $100,000 solution that's out there? Is there another type of thing that keeps you out of the top of the hood of the car, allows you to have a center, so to
So
speak?
the smallest they had, that I saw was this, which is an alternative. Norwalk has this as a, uses it actually as a community policing vehicle. It is, I think I mentioned this in the previous presentation, it's a, Ford Freightliner style van, kind of like your plumber or anything else would have. But as you can see from the picture here, it's a very small area. There are only room for 2 people to sit at. Which the intention is you want to have working space where people can collaborate and plan, operate in a space that is not outside in the elements. With communications equipment and telephones and radios, where this gets a little bit tighter to do that. One of the challenges I've had in researching this, and I've been working with our committee, who's been across all the departments, is the fact that the pricing of these things is wild. This is the state of New York.
I just want to get it's not necessarily about the money.
Understood.
It's about the money. We needed it, we get it. The question is back to what is the absolute need for this versus alternatives? That's the question. And that's, and the answer is, this is the best alternative. This is what you have to answer for.
You don't have that ability to communicate and collaborate remotely, or, and basically the end of the story is you either, if you do a trailer, which could be cheaper, you'll never get used because nobody knows how to use it. If you do a small vehicle,
Go back to the trailer. We get it. Trust. Fine. We get that. We understand the trailer. We understand it's very, we understand that is not a good option for lots of reasons.
So these vans, these Amazon style vans, this is the.
Amazon style van, and these are all rough numbers based upon what years have done.
This is the thing.
Yeah, and I've spoken with people who purchased these. I spoke with Fresno, California, police who purchased the units and with this. I spoke to Nassau who bought this unit and got feedback from them and said, yeah, this van was nice, but it was too crowded. Nobody ever wanted to stand inside the thing. Because it was just too crowded at that point. It's most of that space is actually taken up with storage.
But why not Fresno?
No, 100%. I'm using it as an example, just to say that the lessons that they learned. in their day.
It's like a lot, it's 20,000 person.
It's might be interesting to compare to other towns.
Yeah,
Which benchmarking slide I thought was usually.
which, exactly. So our peers, Darien, I'll start with Darien, their fire department has an incident, I'm sorry, I'm on body armor.
Yeah.
My bad. Darien has, police department has an ambulance style incident command vehicle.
What's wrong with that?
It's the same roughly as what we're recommending.
That's
It's just the only difference is instead of a van body, you have a pickup truck body, because the one where I spoke with our highway tech, they said that they're near impossible to maintain the van fronts. Which is why we so strongly push.
And this was $400,000?
Theirs was probably, they bought it a long time ago. It was a very old ambulance that was, and I don't know the price because it was so old. Wilton has their incident, a trailer they use, but they're not, to be honest, they don't like the fact that it's a trailer, it doesn't get used, and I just found out that they.
The town of Wilton assigned the incident command trailer to CERT for lots of different reasons. Once they purchased the trailer for them, they then went off and used ARPA funds to purchase a heavy pickup truck, an F-250 pickup truck, using ARPA funds, which then would be wholly and solely assigned to the command vehicle, so it would be covered. So it's
So Darien did nothing recently, that's all.
Nothing recent.
And Wilton has you bought a pickup truck.
pickup truck and a trailer to support it. A trailer with a pickup truck.
So how much was theirs? Oh,
I don't know. I know the F-250s are going for near 90,000 nowadays, but I don't know. I can't speak to it empirically.
and the trailer, how much does that cost?
They generally run around 200.
Okay, so they're in for 290.
Thereabouts, the same as you would get with the van.
Okay.
What did they have before?
I do not know that. I asked their chiefs, because I went around and called every one of the chiefs and asked, kind of what they had, and I don't know what capacity they had before that.
But Richmond, well, you're not Richmond.
You know, that's.
I went to Region One's house, so I just went down and close for the Region One team.
The Greenwich doesn't have one?
Okay.
What do they have?
Greenwich has two. Greenwich has trucks for fire and police. Each of them have one. Stanford has three, one for fire, police, and EMS. Not a fair comparison, bigger city, of course. But when you look at Greenwich and Norwalk, or they all have multiple units. No, understood, understood. So you asked what the regional comparison, so it's
I think Darien and Wilton are better comparison than Greenwich.
100%. I just compiled everything in regional and saved the full picture. So.
Well, and Westport is what.
Westport is a
they've got the
big-
data, yes.
Yeah, and their Westport hosts a thing called FieldCom 1, and it's actually kind of interesting because about 3 towns rely on that as their incident command vehicle, just geographically it's local to them. So Fairfield themselves and Wilton tried to get it, but actually the chief had said, we'd love to get it for our annual events and for July, this, that, the other thing, we can't because it's already being used in those other towns. It's an asset we can't access. We asked, but it's just.
I'm sorry, so FieldCom is like a subscription or?
Yeah, it's probably, Fairfield County has, it's Fairfield County has that. So, it's a regional partnership between departments in Fairfield, and they have, part of the hazardous materials team, they have a communications vehicle, that can be called, absolutely, we can call it. The problem is that as with many of these things. it depends on-
Everybody needs it.
Everybody needs it, right?
That's the change.
Right. And I think that the key part to answer any of your question in particular was is that the multi-use events. I don't want to use specific police incidents, but we envision that it would also be leveraged beyond just being a command post for those times that when we have planned events, God forbid an act of violence or something happens, but it also can be used to help them with investigations, help any other department in town that needs that kind of mobile office communications. In investigations, hostage negotiations, and those sorts of things, this is a very important asset.
And worst case scenario, how would you use this? Who would be in it? And how would that have been done without it before, besides the police station?
Yeah, the worst case though.
I think people don't understand. And
Yep.
I'm not even sure we do.
Yep.
We understand the July 4th, obviously, and
It's-
the, roundtables, or at least I do, because I've done so many, but
So,
how would it be used?
so, excellent.
No, go right ahead.
So you've got 2 different types, flavors of events, right? Planned events and emergency events. And of course, you never want the emergency event to happen, but when it does, you need to have a trailer, a vehicle such as this. It's sort of like saying, and this is always the case when it comes to emergency preparedness, materials, equipment, and supplies, right? You never need it until you really need it. How many of us have smoke detectors in our house? How many times have they been used? Maybe never. But would we want to live without them? Probably not. And I think that is an example of what an emergency command vehicle is. You hope that you never want to use it for an emergency. But when you do, you sure as hell you've had it.
And the individuals who would be in that room or in that vehicle are your chiefs, or your command officers. It may not be one of us that's there at the scene. It's the first person on scene and then following on forces. So take, for example, unfortunately, an incident that happened in town. I won't use it specifically, but they're bringing in outside agencies. They are conducting investigations, or if it's a large scale fire or at downtown, we have a large scale fire. We need to coordinate incoming mutual aid assets, which means that you're gonna have a person inside there who's gonna be communicating. You're gonna have someone representation from police, from traffic control. You're gonna have someone probably from the town. I would assume at some point with a large scale incident, we're gonna have highway department involved as well. And what the intention is you have it on site where the activities themselves are occurring to collaborate. They all have their own radios of their own frequency. They have the access to the phone and they're able to mitigate the incident collaboratively. And that's the intention. I guess where people struggle with it is they think, oh, well, in EOC, you just sit in a room and that's what you do is you sit around a table. Yes, that's the exact same
That's
thing.
what they
For
think.
very large scale multi-week incidents. But we also have incidents that could be several days where you need on-site command and control functions. And that's what this is on. So at the end of the day, look, we can make as compelling an argument as to why we think this is important, why we feel that the federal guidance fits this. But I understand you've got a large priority stack and
So
we just recommend that what we think is appropriate.
could you speak to, just help us understand, between, the van-based model and the 550 based model, other than one can house 2 people and the other can house 4, are they otherwise functionally equivalent, they all do the same thing, they essentially have the same equipment.
Yes.
Or,
Yes, at the end of the day, they accomplish the same role as the number of people you can put in. And the size, I hate to say it.
so the larger, more expensive one does not do anything qualitatively different, it just is available for more people.
Right, the only thing I think, but the one our committee was looking at, was that the camera mast on the back, which would be great for large scale events, not only for keeping an eye on folks, but also lost people. You know, before, if I use that as an example, but that's a capability that could be attached to any vehicle as long as it's of a certain size. But at the end of the day, it comes down to butts and seats, the people who are working together to mitigate something. And the smaller ones give you a lot tighter area. Imagine sitting in a van with two people next to each other. And again, in the back of it is mostly storage at that point.
What's the network capacity? This works in areas where there's no wireless?
Yes, the intention is you would have one AT&T and one Verizon cell phone, so hopefully between one of the two, you're in an area where it will work. And then mobile data,
Oh, you don't have service. You might not have service.
it's very possible because.
Wherever there's a dead zone, it's a dead zone.
Yeah,
There's
the only-
nothing this vehicle provides, from the network capacity point of view, that covers the fact that there's no cell service.
We did not feel for the incredible expense on a monthly basis or quarterly basis that satellite data was.
I'm okay with the answer. I'm just saying that doesn't solve the problem.
It still will have a public safety radio, so we'll have police, fire, EMS, public works, and schools. Communication channels on it with the two-way radios, which is not dependent upon the cell phone network.
Well, we would have that, fire department and the youth police department, build that capability to be there,
Which,
to talk to each other on the radio.
right, but they don't have a space in which to operate.
So this is all about the idea is that you can't possibly do this unless you have a covered private space. But, and I guess what I would think, I'm pretty impressed with what people in this town are doing. It seems like this would be nice to have. I'm not sure I would always feel great about having it at a big event either. It kind of seems like moving and militaristic, for lack of a better word. You know, this is just how I feel. I mean, if you're showing the list of things that we have to worry about, I can't worry, it's hard for me to get excited about worrying about capping coverage. You know, and that should be an expense that we have to incur. But the fact that something, the holiday stroll, I mean, the police station is 4 blocks away. You know, 5 blocks away. I just really struggle with it. I think it's just, I think it's way more than we need. And I have a pretty good confidence that, you know, we have ambulances that you can work on.
Could I clarify, are you saying that you would not want an emergency trailer either? Emergency command trailer, you don't want an emergency command post at any time, you're
Well,
saying?
I'm not really excited about a big looming police vehicle with an antenna and stuff. No, I guess I'm not, honestly. And that's just, I think we're a town of 20,000 people, right? We dedicate a lot to safety and it's important and people dedicate a lot of time. And I think if there wasn't potentially 250 in ARPA money, we wouldn't even be having this discussion. Because I would expect it to come from the other departments and I just feel like, you know, the emergency management used to be a volunteer position. Our budget was small, now it's full-time. I'm not saying it's not needed, but all of a sudden it's jumping in what we must have. And maybe we could consider it and slow down and develop it more and maybe next year program, but I'm just not comfortable that we need something so major.
If one of the reasons this thing is so expensive is because of the price of material, then that would suggest it's the wrong time to buy.
Year.
It's probably, yeah,
It's the wrong year, it's maybe 2 years from now, when aluminum prices are more reasonable.
Yeah.
And the supply chain of automobiles,
something else is going.
you know, you can buy the same thing for 75, 80,000, probably less.
But again, that's not the point though. If it's all about $70,000 less, then you're convinced we need one.
I'm not convinced.
Well, then it doesn't matter. That's my point. This isn't about
It's not about money.
It's not about the money. Do we need one? Yes or no? We need one. We gotta buy one. We get one, by the way, 60% off. You'd buy it tomorrow if everybody thinks we need it. And that's the question. I think this board, again, we're not voting on this tonight. This is a Tuesday night conversation and a Thursday vote. Just so you know how it's gonna play out. But I want you to be aware that there's some resistance about it. Next, not sure everybody understands. Yeah, next week, the 9th of March.
But in the event of a catastrophe, how long does it take for the state troopers or the feds to get here and get involved or even take over?
I can't speak to the, on the police side, I know it takes multiple hours because they're cut Hartford, plus if it's at night, they gotta call somebody in from wherever they live to get the thing and then bring it down. So it's a substantial lead time. Plus then you're not just there for 5 minutes, you're there through the duration of the incident, plus the aftermath, the cleanup and everything else. You know, even if something as simple as a fire is not a house fire, just a single house fire, not to say that, you know, would we leverage this? Yes, but this is for something a little larger than that, downtown or active violence or things like that. Those are not 1 or 2 hour activities. And I think that's an important part to this. You're gonna have teams of people working to mitigate those that last for 12, 24 hours. And that's stuff, activities you can't do from town hall or the police department. It's on site and you're there for a day or 2, depending upon what it is.
But the multiple day
And that works.
events tend to be from, as we saw that for disaster, the power's out, and so we have the crisis in the town for a week.
Mhm.
So how would the vehicle?
They're mitigating individual incidents. I'll be sitting hopefully with the team dealing with the overall strategic picture, trying to get Eversource to fix things and working with the state if we have flooding issues or FEMA or whoever else, the National Guard. But then there are individual incidents that are occurring because of that, whether it's individual streets that are flooding or roads that are, you have fires, whatever. So that's where this is a tactical level as well. It's doable. You can use it tactically, but you can also use it as backup if your strategic, your ESC goes down.
Is there
We
one
can't get it
near,
in the police department.
is there one nearby, is there one in Greenwich that we could go see that would be bikes that they would be getting?
Yeah, Wilton's, and then there's one in,
One of those, it's like this.
the one that goes to the trailer. I said the trailer.
It's not good.
Yeah, chief, go ahead.
Couple of things, it's great that you had a trailer in place for years, it might not have got, used as much, one of the things with these command trailers. Especially on the events, you're decentralizing, your event, so whether it's family fourth, choose to use it for caffeine and carburetors. The numbers that the presentation before us mentioned about the amount of people in Norwalk, we used to deploy the command vehicle for the high school football games, the McMahon Norwalk football games, the Pride Festival, which were similar numbers to what you have. And what we did is decentralize the communications going to our police department and fire department dispatch center, and it held it on site. So we were running an individual, command post there for the site and everything that was happening on the site. So that actually takes off a lot of issues for the 911 dispatcher at the police department. Once he transfers the call to them, that was one thing that we did a lot of. The multi-day events and the command post side of it, or the emergencies, I should say too. The command post side of it. It's dark out there, and you can't roll out a map of anything, whether it's a school, some type of building, or an area where we're looking for a lost person without that. I mean, we could set tents up. The tent's not gonna get set up at 2 o'clock in the morning, on a July night. We're gonna be using flashlights on a hood, which is not, it's not conducive versus pulling out the command trailer and rolling out the plan so we can set, grid out Waveney Park or grid out somewhere where we need to walk through neighborhoods and search for that, and having that place to report back from on site that somebody's actually marking it out. So that's the benefit. I used FieldCom 1 in hazmats probably 24 times since FieldCom 1 was in place. That's an anomaly. It's got a dispatch center. It does things far more than any other vehicle in the state can do. We're not looking for that. That takes over your dispatch center and 911 center in the event of emergency, but we also had the command post on the back. So that's where the command section was. So that did both things, and Russ is giving a plan that's trying to do both. It'll be a very good command post, but when it goes into that radio area, it's probably gonna be a little less people in there to do that. So that's probably my 2 cents on a command vehicle. I mean, having the trailer here already is great. And being able to, we used it at the family fourth last year. It was my first time to know what was got out there, and we put a police firefighter in there that handled any communications and anything going on the site, that it didn't, you know, it was much more manageable in that case.
So other than the family fourth, one of the times have been used to.
That's the problem. It hasn't been leveraged as much because nobody knows how to move. We had difficulty moving the trailer. So we.
Well, let's go back to the heyday when, we first got it. And we knew what we were doing with it every day. What did we do?
That was our problem. Nobody moved it. And we let, I use an example, Devonwood Road was a fire we had down there long ago, and it took 3 hours for us to get somebody from highway, because it was at night, and it was a fire, and it was snowing, to go and get a person to come from wherever they live, to go get the truck, to bring it to the scene. And that led to a culture where people just said, it's too much of a pain in the butt, we're not gonna call for it.
So in all the years that we've owned it, we've never been able to use this because.
It's used for pre-planned events. It's
Scheduled events.
scheduled events will be known. Plus for emergency response, no, because of the fact that they have an operational problem, because the nature of its deployment.
So it's available when we don't need it.
We've used it a couple of times, speaking with police for that, we've used it a couple of times. Major incidents, one that there are two that come to mind, 2 or 3 that come to mind. We had a hostage situation on Conant Bridge Road. This was probably 15 or so years ago, if not more. And that was very much needed at that point because it was where we had to establish communications, do some hostage negotiation. Also been part of other major investigations where we didn't use it and we were able to work without it. And it's, as Stuart said, it's when you need it, you need it. Fortunately, in this town, we don't need it very often and we adapt very well. During a recent investigation a few years ago, circling the Waving Park, we set up the command post and did these grid searches out of the kitchen of Waving. With the state lead canine search parties, and that's where I established my command post on it. For that portion of it, of the search that night, it was a cold, dark, rainy night, and it was nice to have the kitchen area because it was warm and dry. So it's a lot of other times it's nice to have.
Is that, again, actually, is there one that's nearby, like we could go to, I could go visit and see it and take a look at it?
They bring it here, just.
They can bring it here,
I can inquire with the chiefs and see what I can do.
we can find out, I will do it around the weekend or anytime, whatever, just sometimes I go really talk to them and see it, look, I mean, we're voting on something, none of us have ever written it. Right? So let's get our hands dirty and figure it out.
Sure, absolutely.
And it's a first year request. I mean, it's not like we were prepared.
Although we have the trailers, so I guess.
We had the trailer.
Yeah,
15 years ago. What was the funds we used on the grant for that?
I was not Jim
Because-
Cole.
I know, I
I-
remember.
I
I
just
don't
remember.
remember.
But the trailer was a request last year, so yeah, I know it's still
No.
a capital item.
Remember we got money for that. That's big.
So we'll vote on this on Thursday the 9th. But we'd like to try to, I think, get all of our questions answered by Tuesday, next Tuesday. Okay, torture you all with this, but it's a lot of money, we're trying to make sure. we do it right. And I appreciate your patience.
I'm a taxpayer, you're in town, I get it. I get it.
If they bring it here for us. If someone will bring it.
Something like that.
Yeah, I'll make some calls.
Can you get back and maybe you get Westport, or maybe you don't mind, or just.
Yeah.
Before maybe Tucker, let's go. We'll go to the town or it's going either way. I know it helps.
You should probably, if it is available, make the tour available to the town council.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
They're gonna end up seeing it anyway.
Yeah.
I would just make a comment too, having Russ on as a full-time emergency management is a huge thing compared to what we had.
Oh, right, and
Preparation
Yeah.
for making for any kind of incident and, the support we give to the schools is really
All
critical.
level. I agree with that.
no, at least it was due.
I look, I think we're informed.
It was
I think it's a little more education.
It's, you hope you will never, ever need to deploy something like this in an emergency situation, but keep in mind that one of the most horrific mass shootings took place 2 towns over, I mean,
And both on-site, there are on-site commanders, plus I guarantee you their EOC was active for weeks. And so they were dealing with it on-site as well as at the EOC.
Yeah, I have a question about the budget. So
I think we're gonna table this for now, hang on. Stay with us for now, and get some precedent, see what we can do for some more due diligence, and then we'll get it, resolved next week. Fair enough? Absolutely. Thank you very much, Greg. Thank you. In terms of the next second, pick your hand up here. What we're gonna do is, I'd like a hand to come up. We're gonna go through all the tax credit projects. Some of these are expiring or nearly expired. What's your question about?
So for the incident command vehicle, it's listed in the capital with 308,000, which includes the 250,000 ARPA funds. But the powerhouse theater is only listed as 250, which needs to be missing 250,000.
We can have the 250 for our side of the call.
Yeah, so should the for ARPA be in there?
Sure.
Yeah, that's why I asked the question. I thought I could not be that far off. Yeah, without,
So their request was,
I mean, technically, what you're saying is, this project would have to be $1 million project, the town's paying for it, we got time money coming from the town player, 250 get the market. So if you want to go it all broad.
If you want, yeah, if you wanted, you would have to, then you would have to do the same thing for the Conservancy and the NCAF, right? Because it's a 50-50 with the Conservancy and the NCAF, is to be determined.
No.
You know,
Does ARPA belong in the budget numbers or does ARPA get
I
excluded?
guess that's up to the board.
it's excluded, it's not, I'll ask Dan, I'm pretty sure it's excluded, it's not, we don't budget it.
We don't budget, usually, if
Tax-
anything, we put it in another column to show how funding.
Where the funding stuff.
Right, we're bonded, tax supported and others.
Yes.
Then we should take it out of the incident command vehicle line.
Yeah, it belongs in an approval, where we approve the funds, the fund for it, but it's not a taxpayer item. Yeah, it should be consistent.
but we haven't approved the 250 that's part of the potting shed
No.
piece
Oh.
yet,
Yes,
right?
you did.
Yes, we
did that.
did. Yeah,
We did that.
Can we
Oh,
move
okay, good.
can we move ahead on that without the rest of the project?
Yes.
If we, all right, I think that's an important point, because it's been so lumped together that it's all or nothing. And I don't think people are comfortable, 500,000 ARPA and then all the rest. It's a.
That one was already done though.
Yeah.
There's-
no,
well,
yeah.
there's- so right now.
Yeah.
Right now, it's under design, both are being
That's right.
designed.
Yeah.
As is the patio in between. So there's a synergy to do them all in one shot. There is. But they can be separated. They can be separated into 3 separate projects, meaning the powerhouse, the potting shed, and the bathrooms can be separated 3 separate projects, or 2 or 1. It really, there is a synergy, obviously, you do them all together because you'd be on the campus in one shot. But I can say that, yes, they could be separated. And depending upon how it flows funding wise, it might, that might have to happen.
So, let's be clear on that. So if the entire campus gets redone with this act, right? So the total amount of money that it'll cost, is it like, it's like 1.4, right? Something like that. And then, and the buckets are the already 250 we approved for ARPA for the bathrooms, right? Then potentially another 250, which is more towards the town players. Right, that's $5 million, sorry, am I doing this right?
Yeah.
And then the town would be doing in our regular capital 250. So that's to 750, so, and then town players are pulling 500, so basically the town out of taxpayer pocket money.
No, taxpayer. Will be 250 out of tax.
I was gonna say that.
No.
So,
Yeah.
because of having access to the ARPA funds, which would be 500 total. Town players coming 500, this is close. With our contribution at 250, this area of Waveney that hasn't been renovated, gets renovated and expanded. I mean, if I'm just putting it in big context like that, and I know it's relying upon using a lot of ARPA money for it, in terms of leveraging. And I really struggled with this project, but it's like, it's not a heck of a lot of our capital contribution from the town directly.
Yeah.
And so just, and then that one section of Waveney, which is kind of that not touched one, gets fixed. Fair,
Correct.
is that fair?
Yeah.
Say like that?
And you are right now, there's that portion of the campus so to speak, from the. Has been untouched, since they did a renovation back in 1985. For the expansion to put in their storage area, where it was a greenhouse, and they built they put in that shed, or they put in that portion of the annex for the powerhouse. For their crops stage,
Right.
what they need. Other than that, we literally haven't touched that area at all. That was the potting shed was a storage area for the recreation department until the floor fell.
Right.
And then when the floor fell,
Makes
we didn't
total
do anything.
sense.
Yeah.
And then
No.
around it, we never really took in the gardens. They took care of all that area. We didn't take care of it at all. And then we wound up doing the wall in the back, and I think it was the garden club helped us with the putting in a no-mo fescue on the top. And that's about
Did
it.
we do a while ago, did we do, the roof? I know we did the carriage barn roof.
We did the roof on both the powerhouse and the carriage barn. That's correct.
Okay, so
So
the
those were
section
taken
of the
care of.
roof. Yeah.
That was necessary.
Yeah,
That.
okay.
Yeah, I apologize. That's correct. So
Yeah.
we did those two. That's a number of years ago now.
Yeah,
That's-
and those were slate, and they were expensive.
Yes, yeah, but we're dating on that now, as far as how long it was.
How long ago was that?
Like 6 years ago.
Yeah, maybe even, 6, 7, because we had a point where we were gonna do them all together. We paused on the Waveney roof. We paused on the Waveney roof for 2 years and then did the Waveney. It's been about 2 years since then, so it's about 6.
Yeah.
About, that's a fair number.
And how much, what else have we put into to the arts?
The carriage barn,
Carriage
we did a similar renovation with the carriage barn. Where the town actually contributed more than the carriage barn. They did contribute, don't get me wrong, but we contributed more, where we needed to put in similar thing. We had to put in bathrooms, right, ADA compliant bathrooms. They were looking for a larger conference room and then an area for their offices. So we took out the apartment, so they lost that revenue, to their credit, they lost that revenue. And then we were able to do that area, the entire thing came out fantastic, but I don't know what the breakdown of the contribution is in my head.
It wasn't the same level.
It was not the same.
No, okay.
It was not a 50-50.
Yeah.
To that, I know that for a fact.
It was 50-50
It was not.
at Lapham. Because
Lapham.
they raised half, we met half.
Well, Lapham Community Center,
Yeah, I remember.
that's going back to the ways. I was talking to Terry.
There, yeah.
Okay, so a couple of things on capital. I did ask the departments to do what they could on taking some reductions to Board of Ed, reduce their, I think it was $752,000, a lot. And I know that, so we were gonna go, we're not gonna go through those reductions tonight, just so the chiefs know, I just wanna make sure we've got them all. Does John have everybody's input or email from?
He should have now. He's on, Josh, do you have them all?
I have Tigers, I have the Board of Eds. In terms of reductions, I know we have a priority list from fire and from Russ. I'm not sure if I have police's priority list, and no real reductions from fire and Russ yet.
Yeah, that's what I asked for, must have in the prioritization, so as long as we have them all.
Are they up there?
We don't know.
We don't have. This is something different. I just want to make sure everybody understands where we are. So we've asked for that. We've got the prioritization and some reductions. We will go through that on Tuesday night. I'd like to go through and make sure we have got any questions we want to get asked and answered. We want to get that done on Tuesday to give everybody time, and then we can vote on Thursday with all the facts, okay? So that's, but also just for managing your time. You don't need, we're gonna go through something we have to do statutorily here. Projects expire, they get closed and so forth, and we need to see where we are there, because that does guide our thinking a little bit on what we can improve next week. So there are some for everybody's department here, including Board of Ed. But I just want to make sure everybody had a label. Okay, all right.
So the budget reductions are gonna be Tuesday, that's the thought.
That's yeah, well, operating, I would say, I'm not sure, we might have some questions, but I'm not sure we have a lot to read. I think everyone's gonna really have
one.
one.
Yeah.
On capital, I think you got the must have, and we're gonna have to see what we can do, what we wanna do. I think we're close to where we're targeting to be around 15 million, but I gotta have to see this list.
And also, you gotta do a placeholder for what,
For
the
the
athletic.
UK and athletic.
Those are not little numbers.
We don't have anything in there. for
Yeah,
that.
no,
I
that's.
would also like to add that the superintendent, and Dan Bennett on the Board of Ed came back with 800 and
71.
$857,000 of operating reduction, operating expense reduction. So that was a very big reduction. A good chunk of that was I'll call it almost a true up on the stop loss premium count, which is fine. We knew that was probably high and they've got a sharper number. I don't know that that's the final number. I don't think that it is, but it's a little bit more in line with what we heard. So,
So that 857 includes the true up or that's?
857 includes $470,000 from the reduction in the stop loss premium.
That's about right.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, the 475 is about right, yeah.
Let's go through this. This is now, everyone knows some of these are closed and we have funds. And when you take us through, I think, three things, those are the ones that we might want to have an extension for.
So this one actually slightly changed from what got mailed out to you. The first two projects got added to it because they're not on the rollover list, so it added another 53,000 onto, these are the ones we're looking to get formally closed. So then it frees it up to use it for some other projects.
Need a motion before we close?
I don't know if we've ever done it in the past as opposed to they're just done, and this is the exit.
No, I don't think we.
It
It just goes back into the fund balance.
For tonight, I think it's just awareness. If
Right.
you need to do something, let us know.
I don't think so. It's usually
We require penalty for the finance department to close them out.
Yes, yeah.
That's right.
okay.
Yeah, so I mean. that's-
So before I close it, make sure that they're good.
So right now it's 116,000, that we would,
we're telling them it's all going back to the general.
no, these right now are in the tax supported capital fund. They can come back into the general fund, or you just reduce, use them for out of the request for this year. Yeah. On the bottom, we do have.
Would you repeat that? I'm sorry, you're using them towards their requests this year, so
No.
it's reducing it, or it's a one lump, 116,000?
Right now, it's 116,000
Okay.
that we're saying we don't need anymore.
Toward tax supported capital?
Yeah, this is this is completely the tax for the capital fund, not in the general fund.
All right, that's
So,
what I meant.
Yeah, what we would look for is that these two projects at the end, we had money in one, but it went over on the other. Back in 18 and 22 and just reclass so that we would be giving back 480.
Okay, so this list is different from the one. I think.
Yeah, the first two on the top we added on because they should not be on the rollover. And they were on the rollover, so we put them onto the request to close out.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
$53,000 additional.
We're at 116 grand.
So where will this show up on the final budget?
It's not, what you can choose at this point, because this is in the tax supported, if you approve the 2 million of tax supported projects that's requested,
It comes out.
it'll be
Okay.
reduced by 106
Okay,
grand.
I got it.
But
One
on
and a
top,
half police cars.
well, on top of it,
That's fun, I can look at that, but yeah, I was looking at something different.
Something that we yell at. A couple of goals. All right, a couple of goals.
but in addition to this fund balance, I did an analysis of the whole fund, not just what was open to close. In addition, we have about 385,000 that has been from years past that must have been closed and never used. So, we've closed in nearly 500,000, I think it is, 385 and 116. So we've got close to 500,000 in the fund. With the
Wow.
previous balance and then closing it.
So it never went back to the general,
Never went back.
so it always stayed in the tax supported capital.
Yeah, it just closed out and stayed in the fund balance in the tax supported capital fund.
Just money not spent.
Right.
Since it's not in money, you have to use it for a capital project.
This is not, this is
tax.
not-
It's all
Yeah,
tax.
it's
500, she's talking about. all tax.
Yeah,
So that's why.
It's found money.
It was money that we didn't spend, so it wasn't set aside.
no, it's projects over the years and also it could have been money that came over from a conversion.
Whatever.
It's what's in the fund balance. Yeah, it's what's in the fund balance.
So the 116, we're gonna not spend.
Well, because these things won't come.
And then we got 500, just to be clear, we have about 500,000
We
in
have
that
about 500 right now.
fund that's been, we already approved, we just haven't spent.
We, at some point, the projects.
And then we finished up, we had 33 cents left over.
Right.
So we overfunded projects which are now closed.
Tiger came under budget is how we went.
Yeah.
all years that were involved, if I could find out specifically what year that 300,000 came about. I took what was approved to date and what we rolled over from the
No,
last,
no,
but
yeah.
I'm not sure when, I'm not saying when, yeah.
We want to look to. We're gonna take the fund money and run. The only question though is how we want to apply it going forward, and that's probably not gonna resolve now.
No, it's gonna be in your budget process to say we're gonna.
We have it,
revisit
we'll go through the budget projects, that just make, took a little pressure off capital, tax funding.
This might be for another meeting, of course, but as a matter of good order, I would like to understand how it was that we were only realizing now that there's 300 grand from prior years ago. And was it could simply be, we were unaware, for good reason or not, I don't know, but we were unaware that these projects were closed. We thought they were still open and they were still, those allocated funds were still capable of being spent, right?
Yes.
And now we've either gotten actual word that, no, we're done, it's over. Or we've kind of deemed it over because we hadn't heard, right? One way or another, we kind of said, no, we're done with this. And now this is available there, right?
Yeah, just so what I took was the last time we did a rollover, approved rollover, which was, I think, 19 or so, 20. At that point, those were the projects that were approved to be rolled over, and then we had 22s and forward.
Got it.
Anything prior to that was not approved to roll over, so in essence, that was. looking at
I don't think it's a surprise that fund was there. I think.
We've done this.
I think these projects have wrapped up, there's always a surplus and it adds up, it just has to be finished up.
Yeah, done finding with it.
So it's 300,000 plus the 116 is what gives you 500.
Yes.
Got it.
320. Okay, let's go. Let's go to. their
So the next schedule is, this is just formality of, these are the projects that were approved in 22. They're automatically rolled over because they're allowed the 2-year rollover 22 into 23. So we're just letting you know, these are the ones that are being worked at. And at the point of when this was run, some of these have already been spent down appropriately. Because they have until the end of this year to spend this money.
Say that again, end of this.
Fiscal
June.
year.
They only have 2 more months.
3 more months to approve, to spend this down, or else this is gonna come in front of you at some point to say, or request.
Roll it or take it. But again, it's $1 million. I don't know.
Well, at the point we ran this, there's money that's gonna get it, so I can update it to say it's really 600 or whatever it is at that point. I can run it.
date for the 900?
What we did was we did it as of the 6/30 date, which is the date it has to get the approval, so there's been spend down since.
Just to tighten on that one, last one on the bottom there, transfer station, install security gates, is that gonna happen?
They're in, it's just not shown.
Right, that's what I'm saying, there's some expenditures on it, so I'll bring it up, I'll send you an updated
Okay,
one
so there's
through
no like
the end of February.
Okay, so there could be separate, so both of that.
Right, some of these could be gone, but I have to do the approval as to what it, just to let you know what it was at June 20.
We should know, and
Yeah,
this is
that
probably
makes
really a
sense,
June conversation, not a today
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
They still, it's already been approved to spend, so.
Right, and they have until the end of June.
Right.
So that's just what they're setting down on that one. The next list is what, excuse me, what departments have asked for to still be rolled over. Some of these you can tell by the dates. COVID put an impact on that. They may say 19, but certainly with the Board of Ed, you know, the timelines for Board of Ed to get it done is when the kids are out or during the summer, but these 19 projects would have been going into the, you know, somewhat of the 1920 year, so some of them couldn't be done. But they have asked, each of these departments have asked for these rollovers. Approvals on them,
Oh, so everybody wants all of those things,
yes,
still.
still.
And does
But what-
any of that reduce what you're asking for? I guess that's the question.
Yeah.
No.
We approved something from 2018 and we didn't need it.
Right, well, yeah, no, because most of them, I know from our perspective, right, I'll speak from our perspective, it's usually, it's an ongoing where we getting $25,000 a year for something, right? Well, so that's I've got 3, 4, 5 more years out there, right? So if you take the $1,500 back or the 10,000 that's unspent, I'm gonna need that further on down the line.
$1 million.
So, you know,
But there's a time frame to spend this, is there not, once it's been approved? So
There-
is this the leftover money in this project?
They're not all late though.
No, I don't think so.
Some are 21.
Yeah, no, I
Fiscal year
agree.
21, they're not.
Well, they would have been 21 into 22.
That's right.
So if this had been done, say, September of last year,
Yeah.
This would have been coming in front of you to say, we have some funds from 21 that the request is to roll them over. They didn't get them spent in 21 and 22 for whatever reason. And they're looking to spend them now.
Are these all tax supported still? Or just-
This is all completely tax supported fund.
We approved it in 2018.
A lot of it's, well, yeah, a lot of it's been, some of it's been spent, then one of the problems that we had was, once we got cut off, you know, I'll use that
Yeah.
nicely, okay, because Ann's doing a fantastic job. So once she said, well, you can't spend this money, and we started using the current monies, because you can't spend the previous monies, right? And we had a situation prior to Ann whereby we were only allowed to put one account on a PO. So if you can only put one account on a PO, and you didn't have enough money in that account, you had to utilize the new money. And then the old money sat there because you couldn't, and then you had to come back to, okay, I've got $7,000 left in this account, and I've got a project for 6,500. I can use that account now because I've got it. Now with Ann, we're actually able to.
She's frozen this because it needs.
Yeah, but now with her, we're actually able to do things where we can combine accounts, combine them onto a PO from different funding sources, which we were never able to do before. Different accounts, so it's been fantastic for what we're able to do, and a lot of these things will now start to clear up, and you won't see this large list anymore, because we'll be able to use the monies that we should use, which is the older money, before we use the newer money. But what we were running into is if I had a project with a contingency, I have to wait for that project to close on that contingency. I'm utilizing new money, then I can go back and spend the old money. And if it was on two accounts, then I could only put one on the other.
I hear you.
Streamlined, no, it is now streamlined. So if you do.
I'm sorry, I was telling you.
Yeah, no.
It's the limit. You transfer that money. The Board of Finance approves the transfer of the money into the new project, so you don't end up with.
Exactly, and then
it's still needed.
And this is kind of like the cleanup, to me, I'm looking at this, as Tiger said too, we're looking at, if you approve this, now going forward, we have a process where what he had to go through will never happen again.
Yeah.
And that it can be used quicker because of the way the process was done. We used to run 6, 7 check runs a week, the way we did it because of fun.
I don't know when that stops.
So,
You know, that's.
But we do it every meeting.
Yes, but I mean, on a capital item, it's not spent, it's old money. It's either closed out or it's transferred. Or it
All the
should.
departments have come and asked
Yeah.
us tonight.
Yes.
To approve $1 million that we approved prior to roll over that keep spending.
right,
And for the reasons you described, plus things couldn't get done for whatever reason, good intentions. COVID's probably smack in the middle of some of that.
That's-
It just
some of
got
these
shut
things
down.
you can see, yeah.
It just got shut down.
yeah.
I don't know what free police vehicles we get for $2,300.
I don't either. That's, hopefully that's a great savings.
A little bit tell was like a.
You know?
Yeah, that's honestly how it's done.
But Ian, I just want to confirm, all the department leaders that are in the room and Brian have asked for this money, $1 million to say, you know, I need all of it, all going back to 2017 here.
Yes, like, for an example, one of the ones for the Board of Ed, if they're trying to do the painting. They couldn't do it before with timelines. They want to do it now, but they can't because it's technically not approved. This has to be approved for them to use it. So they're using their 22, 23 money to get it done. If this is approved, I'll take it back to free up the money that they can move forward. They only have those windows. So it's the same issue, yeah.
But can I just ask, can I
Sure.
go to the top of the list? I'm sorry, the 20. No, Brian's still on, the East Corridor ventilation for 26, a very specific amount of money that must be what's left. Is the project done? I mean, it's 6 years ago.
Brian, are you still on? Yeah.
Yep, I'm still on. Still on. That has been, it's actually, and I'd be glad, I'm sorry, I'll be glad to sort of take a deep dive and write up a quick little rationale under each of these, if that's helpful. The East Corridor ventilation, that whole project has been a long duration project because we do a little monitor, get results, make some changes and do some other things. So it's not a single sort of one and done as I understand it, but I'll be glad to get more information about each of these because, I do think.
I think that's a good enough answer for us. I just, we're trying to understand what would they be in that, you've already thought all that through. So I guess you're asking for just a blanket approval.
Yes, and then what I'll do is I'll make sure all these are in the right accounts and true it up.
Did we not dredge the pond in the nature center?
Not yet, no. It's under design right now.
Okay.
So
He doesn't want to run a budget surplus.
that $10,000 is actually for the design, I just can't put a PO for it because I don't have money.
Look, I applaud them. In some ways, the team spends the money when they have to, not just because they have it, and we're pretty flexible that way. It's a very, in some ways, a very good process, a tremendous amount of trust. But, 5-6 years, you start to that.
And and I don't know if it's easy to do, but when you. It's the original recommendations.
I could figure that out.
That way you could look and go, oh, all right, they're finishing up, or, I mean.
Yeah, I
Like
could,
if it was.
I could figure it out by running each year.
Only if,
What the
if you
budget
could
is.
easily put a column in saying this. Just, I think, put everything in context.
Okay.
You don't want to vote on this tonight?
I think we have to.
Yeah, let's move it.
Yeah, let's move it, yeah, just curious.
Yeah, okay.
Because the only stated that.
Yes.
I'm rerunning the other one, which is the 2022, which is an automatic rollover, so that still needs a vote on it. This schedule for the 113, that needs the vote for the implementation.
Thanks for the explanation. Sorry for that. There's a long list. We haven't seen one that long, and then some of that before, but that's okay. That's okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll take a motion to approve the, what do you want to call this? This is the special appropriation. Is that the right amount of money?
The this one here, 113. No, it's not a special appropriation.
No,
It's approval of a rollover.
It's very sensitive.
Right, and it's just approving it.
Let's get it right.
Okay, so the new amount is one that's on the screen. not the
Yes,
one
exactly. That one was reduced by 53,000
that you moved to.
up to the top to remove it, yeah.
Right.
And
This is an approval of that
that
amount
amount,
to carry over unspent funds.
Josh is in the background. No, Josh worked on all of this.
Yeah.
It's just harder for him to hear.
Just making it bigger for everybody to see.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
we're approving the transfer of that number into the tax reported capital.
No, we're just
Already-
approving this roll over for the use for the department.
We're approving it to roll over. Okay, we're approving $1,113,836.67.
So is there any expiration on this once we roll it over or just goes into
I
perpetuity?
think in 1 year.
This fiscal year.
Well, we only give them to the end of June then.
No, that I think would not be this fiscal year.
Well, then they got.
Then
then
we
we
put it
did it
again.
Yeah, we're
I'm
gonna
thinking
go-
it's the again
If
at
we
the
do
end
it
of
at the end of this fiscal year, then we have to do it again
Yes,
next year.
right.
So that's all right.
But it should be
So
10,
we
that's
all
all.
agree.
I actually like that a lot.
All
We'll just-
right.
We'll approve this through the end of June
June.
for that amount to roll over or to continue to be spent, and then we'll revisit the list of whatever's left over in June. And
I mean,
see
you
what
don't
else
want to create a world where there's a rush to use it or lose it, because that's
No, you don't want
not great
people to
either,
just
but
flash
I think it's
and-
kind of.
We'll revisit it in June.
Right.
So this number.
That's right. You have the floor.
So this list includes all the projects, 2017 to 2022.
This one is, the one above is just 2022, the 900,000.
This is 900,000 is a separate number.
That's a separate number. That's an automatic rollover because there were 22 projects. They,
We don't
if,
vote on.
no, if they don't spend them by the end of June of this year, then there'll be a request to roll over any money that's left in that 22. Yes. So you can see this all over again.
So this is only the list beginning with the 2017 Board of Ed.
That's the approval list.
So that got moved, the DPW got moved.
Yes.
So starting with the Board of Ed, going down through the 21 projects,
Correct.
and that's the 1,113,000.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, I would, so, Travis, what are the motion
Judy made the motion, it's fine.
to approve until the June 30th?
Through June 30th.
Okay, and then we'll revisit the list after that. Motion, okay, I need a motion. Jamie, second.
Let's say that.
Second.
Yep.
Tom, second. All in favor? Michael?
Yep.
Aye.
Yeah.
Josh, can you stop?
And do we need another vote on the transfer or no?
That's in the closeout up above. That's-
Really wanted to get this vote done.
Talking
One
about the
separate one.
900.
Guys, we're in the middle of a motion to vote, Jeff.
Yeah, but
Anyone opposed? None, okay, so moved.
All right. We're
And
not voting on.
I understood this not to be a challenge, this that list. We're good on that list, the first. one.
Right? Yeah.
The first list, Josh was just asking, can we split between two projects to close it out? I don't know if we need to vote on that.
No, oh, well, you're gonna let us know, right
It's
now,
$100.
we were taking it, it's gonna go into the unspent capital approved, right?
Yep,
Fun, but on Tuesday, you're gonna let us know if we needed a motion to vote for that, I don't think we do. I
Okay.
just think we're telling finance to close them out,
got
that's
it.
all that needs to be done.
Now, are you guys going to post the updated list for the tablets? This list?
Yeah, we
as
can,
opposed to the
yeah,
list
this
list?
was literally changed today, the last hour or so, and I flipped it around, so they don't.
So we'll get an updated list. So it's-
Yeah.
More than we all bargained for on that one, okay, but good home, good, hygiene, you guys have cleaned up, okay. Anything else? You have anything else? Anything else tonight? Anything else?
No, really, I was still working through funds.
Yeah, okay, all right.
That happened for Tuesday.
If nothing else, Bob and Michael, Colm, anything else from you guys? You're good?
We're good.
All right, thanks for your contribution tonight. A lot of things to do there. Thank you. All right, motion to adjourn.
Judy.
Tom, second, Judy, all in favor?
Thanks, all.
Bye-bye.
I think that's been.
What's your question?